Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic. What if Naruto mastered both Chakra and the Force? Part 1. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. Key. Speaking. Thought. Mystical being speaking. Mystical being thought or jutsu. XXXXX equals scene break. AN. Alright guys, I don't know if this is a good idea or not, but if I get enough reviews that like it then I will continue it. This is just a shoot off of what I want, but I am willing to change it if nobody likes it. But I hope you all do. Carrot. Also props to my beta reader killer words. XXXXX. Your training has been going well young one, but if I may ask, why did you choose that color? Asked a black cloaked figure as they put away their weapons. Oh, no reason. What is the name of this planet and how long have been training here for? You have yet to tell me, asked a white cloaked figure as they stood in the center of an enormous field. We are on the planet of Naboo and we have been training for a little over 2 years. I take it you have had training in the ways of the sword on your old planet? Asked the black cloaked man. Yes, I have trained some in the ways of the sword, replied the white cloaked man. As could be seen in your training. You are free to join our group now that you are strong enough, said the black cloaked figure. That's nice. I need to make some money in this new universe. You will be briefed on your first mission once we are on the ship. Let's hope your weird fighting style pays off young one, replied the black cloaked man as they walked to their enormous battleship. XXXXX. She will complete her mission to the letter, an older figure said to a cloaked hologram. Very well, you may proceed, replied the hologram as it vanished from sight. Just then the door behind the older one opened to reveal a bald woman. Master, asked the bald woman, there is no margin for error this time, child. You must prove yourself worthy of being my apprentice, said the older man ever so calmly. I am worthy, as you shall see, said the woman before turning and walking out of the control room. As soon as she walked out of the room, a white cloaked man with black clouds stitched across it came out of the corner of the room. He was wearing a straw hat to conceal his face. But it never hurts to be sure, my child. You're a new one, aren't you? I have used your group before and I haven't seen you yet. Well, let's test your limits, shall we? Said the older man as the white cloaked man walked out of the room to follow the women to her ship. I already like this one, thought the older man as he returned his attention back to the screen in front of him. Lord Dooku, we are about to go into hyperspace once your apprentice leaves the ship, said a battle droid as he returned his attention back to the screen in front of him. Very good, replied Dooku. XXXXX. An explosion rocked the ship as 2 Jedi and several troopers were watching Newt Gunray. Captain, status report, said one of the more veteran troopers defending the prisoner. Droid fighters incoming, they brought boarding ships, replied the captain. Sounds of fire could be heard from the hull as clone troopers desperately fought against the onslaught of super battle droids. Another voice crackled over his arm communicator. They are heading for the detention center. We need reinforcements, whispered a clone trooper before several gunshots were heard before dying over the communicator. Commander, I'll need your assistance. The older Jedi is the clone trooper and the Jedi started to walk down the hall. Yeah, let's go, said the other Padawan as she started to follow the two, only to be stopped by the older Jedi. No, Ahsoka, you will stay here with Captain Argyus. You will guard the Viceroy, said the older Jedi. But, Ahsoka started but stopped when she saw the look on the Jedi's eyes. As you wish, Master Luminara, Ahsoka said as she watched the captain and Jedi walk down the hall. It appears you are in no position to negotiate after all, Padawan. Perhaps after my rescue, the Viceroy started but was cut off by Ahsoka. Rescue? Maybe they're here to make sure you don't talk, Ahsoka replied. She could hear the gulping sound from where she was standing. XXXXX. Destroyed droids and dead clones were scattered across the halls of the ship. Nobody was there to see the apprentice slip out of one of the 3 landing crafts that embedded themselves into the side of the ship. She looked around to see if anyone noticed her landing and noticed one clone trying to get himself up off the ground. He looked straight at her, pulled a blaster pistol and pointed at her. The apprentice dashed at the clone, blocking the shots that were fired at her until cutting off the clone's head. Radio chatter blasted over her communicator as she swiftly cut her way into a nearby air vent. Unknown to all, a second figure slipped out of another boarding craft and followed the evil apprentice into the air vent. XXXXX. Madam Tano, may I have a word? Asked a Republic commando walking down the hall to the holding chambers. Certainly, Captain, replied Ahsoka before turning her attention back to the Viceroy. If I leave, you won't go anywhere, will you? Mocked Ahsoka. Ha ha. Gunray replied as Ahsoka returned her attention to the captain. I've got the all clear. The enemy has been repelled, said the commando. And their attempted to free Gunray has failed, Ahsoka said before noticing 2 red lightsabers cutting through the ceiling of the control room. Out popped Ventress, apprentice of Dooku himself. Ahsoka dashed down the hall while pulling her green lightsaber out. If it isn't the hairless harpy, Ahsoka mocked as she readied herself for an attack. If it isn't Skywalker's filthy obnoxious little pet, Ventress retorted with venom. How nice of you, tell you what, I'll give you a merciful death, Ahsoka said as she blocked jab to her head. The 2 lightsaber wielders then engaged into an intense fight until backing up halfway into the hallway. 3 commandos stood behind her, ready to fire at the intruder at any time. Shot her, Ahsoka shouted as she blocked a swing to her head. The 3 commandos readied their weapons and fired their weapons at the dual-wielding Padawan. The Padawan blocked all shots fired at her and hitting 2 of the 3 commandos and wounding the other. She picked the other up with the force and threw him across the room. The 2 Padawans engaged in a power struggle as they viciously struggled for dominance. Skywalker isn't here to save you now, Ventress mocked. Good thing I don't need saving, Ahsoka replied as she pushed Ventress off of her and went for the kick but missed and went into a split. Ventress seized the opportunity and jumped over Ahsoka, blocking the slash sent at her while she was in the air. Ventress ran to the door that held Gunray and opened the door. Ahsoka dashed at her but missed and was kicked into the cage. Gunray quickly slipped out of the cage and closed the door. As Gunray mocked, Ventress turned to see the Jedi return from the elevator. Using the Force, Luminara opened the cage to let Ahsoka back into the fight. This effectively surrounded the dual-wielding Padawan. Surrender, Luminara demanded as more clone troopers ran down the hallway. Ventress put her lightsabers away and held up her hands but only for a red blinking light to come from her forearm. An explosion rocked the ship as Ventress swiftly dashed down the hallway and down the elevator shaft. XXXXX. Interesting strategy but there are so many flaws. Well, looks like it's my turn, the white-cloaked man thought as he waited for the opportune time to free the Viceroy. XXXXX. All that's left in the room is Ahsoka, 3 commandos, and a trooper. This seemed like the opportune time to attack the Force, now that the stupid Jedi left to fight Ventress. The white-cloaked man quietly jumped down from the hole that was made by Ventress. Ahsoka and the others turned to him. Who are you? Asked Ahsoka with her lightsaber out and ready. How about you give me that man there and nobody gets hurt? The white-cloaked figure said while turning his hat up enough to see his eyes only. His eyes were golden with 3 tomos circling around the pupil. He slowly pulled out his lightsaber and held it in reverse grip and turned it on. The saber was black with a white lining around it. So you were sent here to get him back as well? Well, we can't let you do that. Ahsoka yelled as she charges the dark figure. The cloaked man played it defensively as he slowly backed up to the elevator. His style was completely different from most Jedi that wielded lightsabers. He held his in a reverse grip that almost touched his back and the black light made him seem almost as sinister as Dooku. His style used his blade but also emphasized the use of the hilt of his saber as well. What's your name? Ahsoka asked as she pushed him to the edge of the elevator. The cloaked Jedi suddenly puffed into smoke. Once the smoke cleared, the man that was there was now behind her. The man jabbed her back with the hilt of his lightsaber, which sent her flying into the elevator duct. She turned mid-flight and watched as the cloaked man grabbed her hand and held her up. Right now, he was the only way she was still on that floor. The name's Naruto. Your friend might be in trouble. Go help her out or she'll be dead in a matter of minutes. Naruto said with a wink of his eye before letting her fall down the elevator duct. Naruto turned to the other troopers in the room with death in his eyes. He walked around the commando unit and walked down the hallway. One of the troopers shot both the troopers and was having a fistfight with the other trooper. Gunray was already readying to hit the trooper in the back of the head with a blaster that was on the ground. The trooper fell to the ground as Gunray dropped the weapon. The commando got up and looked at Naruto. Look, I'm on your side, the commando said before Naruto walked up to him and stabbed him in the heart. Naruto got real close to his ear and whispered, I don't give a shit, before turning his lightsaber off and letting him fall to the ground. Gunray was shocked by this. Why did you do that? Gunray asked as Naruto bent down and clicked a button on the commando's forearm. The button started to blink green. Let's go, Naruto ordered before they exited to the ship. XXXXX. I'm sorry I let Gunray get captured, but there was a Sith and a mercenary armed with lightsabers. Ahsoka said to a hologram of Anakin and Yoda. 2 people armed with lightsabers. Luminara asked. Yes, there were 2 of them. One was that slimeball Ventress and the other was probably a mercenary. Ahsoka said. I saw Ventress but I didn't see the other. Was he strong? Luminara asked. Too strong if you ask me. He held his lightsaber in reverse almost the entire time and the light of his lightsaber was black. But he also warned me to go help you because you were about to die. Ahsoka described. Reverse grip EH. That sounds strange but a black crystal for your lightsaber is extremely hard to find. Let's keep an eye out on this one. Anakin said to Yoda who simply nodded his head. XXXXX. Ventress walked into the control to see a white-cloaked man with a straw hat standing silently in the corner with Viceroy sitting in the co-pilot's seat. Who are you? And where is the captain? Ventress asked. I was hired by Dooku to capture Gunray. My name is Naruto and I killed the captain so Dooku could save money. Naruto emotionlessly. Ventress looked Naruto up and down, even thought he was wearing a cloak. I'm starting to like you already, Naruto. Ventress said with a sinister smile. XXXXX. Don't kill it now. Key. Speaking. Thought. Mystical being speaking. Mystical being thought or jutsu. XXXXX equals scene break. XXXXX. Shout out to my beta reader killer words. XXXXX. What do you mean we lost them? Ahsoka said in anger to the trooper that told her. They got away, General. We will continue to try and pick up their trail but it will be hard, the trooper said. Ahsoka calmed herself. Anger will only hurt the mission. Okay, try your best, Ahsoka said returning to normal. We will, General, the trooper said before rushing back to his post. Good job on controlling your anger, Ahsoka. At least you won't turn to the dark side, Luminara said from behind Ahsoka. Thanks, Ahsoka said before an image of another Jedi popped in front of them. Master Luminara, I have tracked the ship to a remote location somewhere on the outer rim, said Green Man. So has your old Padawan Nadar, he already on the surface. Luminara replied as a trooper handed her a piece of paper. It will be great to see Nadar again, the Green Man said. I'll send you the coordinates, Master Fisto, and be careful. There is that slimeball Ventress and a powerful mercenary called Naruto guarding Gunray. They are no pushovers, so be careful, Ahsoka warned. Thanks, any information could be useful, Kit said before disappearing from view. Good thinking on warning him on the mercenary. He could be trouble later, Luminara said turning to Ahsoka only for her to be looking at the ground. What's wrong? When Ventress showed up to take Gunray, I was beaten and lost to someone like her. The only reason we were able to hold Gunray there that long was because of you, and then that mercenary named Naruto showed up. Ahsoka said, still looking at the ground. You are still training, young one. Losing to Ventress was bad, but losing to Naruto was actually beneficial, was it not? Luminara asked with a wink. Ahsoka seemed to brighten at this. That's right. If it weren't him, then you would be dead. But, how did he know? Ahsoka asked. Well, he is a mercenary, so he must be one of those few good mercenaries that if it doesn't involve his money, then he won't hurt innocents. Luminara answered in a thinking pose. I hope we meet him again. I want to talk to him about his eyes. Ahsoka said. His eyes? Luminara asked, generally curious about this new threat for both the Republic and Separatists. Yeah, they wear gold with 3 tomos circling around the pupil. When I was fighting him, it was like he knew how I was going to attack before I even attacked. I was weird because I never even got close to him. Ahsoka said while remembering her fight with Naruto. This character is a weird one. Luminara said as they began to get back to the task at hand. XXXXX. All droids stay on guard. Be ready for anything. Said a voice of Gunray as Kit, Nadar, and 5 other clone troopers slowly approached a lit room. Roger, Roger. Replied the lead droid as they slowly walked up the small flight of stairs and into the room. When those Jedi pick up my trail, they'll never leave me alone. Gunray said with the chair he's sitting in turned away from the entrance. Sir, they're right behind you, replied the droid as the Jedi pulled out their lightsabers. What? You, blast them, shouted Gunray. The droids started to shoot at the Jedi but was futile in their attempts to kill the Jedi. Did you get them? Asked Gunray with the chair still turned away from them. No, but we have you, Viceroy. Nadar said and, using the force, spun the chair around. A white-cloaked man with a straw hat covering his face was holding a projector with Gunray on it. You have nothing, Jedi fools. I welcome you to your doom. Gunray said before laughing and disappearing from sight. Who are you? Nadar demanded. The white-cloaked man said nothing as he continued to sit there with his legs crossed and holding up the beacon. Just as Nadar was going for his lightsaber, another image popped into sight from the projector. I apologize for the deception, Master Jedi. An older figure said before anything was said about the man in the chair. Count Dooku, you have a great talent for unexpected appearances. Kit said calmly. It's a shame you came so far to be frustrated. Although the Viceroy is unavailable for capture, let me offer you an alternative prize. Dooku said with an evil grin before disappearing, making a button on the chair start to blink red. The cloaked man crushed the hologram projector and threw it at Kit, who caught it with ease. So you are the mercenary that Ahsoka told me about. Kit said to the mercenary. Who is he? Nadar said, getting angrier with the man in the chair while inching closer to the lightsaber on his belt. He is one of the men that helped capture the Viceroy. He is a mercenary and only did it for the money. His name is Naruto, Kit said calmly, noticing his old Padawan's actions. My job was to reclaim Gunray, but I hold no more allegiance to the Sith Lord now. I am a simple mercenary doing it for money. I am not your enemy any longer. Naruto said while standing up from his chair. Naruto too saw what Nadar was doing and readied himself for the appropriate defense. He also turned on his normal Sharingan because being outnumbered 7-1 was not a great position. I see. It is probably not a good idea to face another Jedi before exploring this place. Kit said, but Nadar was still getting angry at the man in front of them and was about to attack. Jedi, you might want to calm your friend or you will gain yet another enemy in the coming fight. Naruto said emotionlessly while looking directly at Nadar. Nadar, calm yourself. Attacking him now is a bad idea. We do have him outnumbered, but he can easily escape and join the other force in this place. Kit said to Nadar. I'm glad to see that not all Jedi are blind like this one. Naruto said to Kit. Thank you, Naruto, Kit said with a smile but frowned when his old apprentice made the wrong decision and attacked the cloaked man. Naruto frowned and shook his head as he swiftly took off his hat and sealed it into his sleeve. Naruto never took out his lightsaber as he swiftly grabbed Nadar's wrist and kneed Nadar in the ribs. Nadar slowly fell to the ground from the powerful blow to his stomach. Naruto picked up Nadar's lightsaber and turned it off. Your friend made the wrong decision in attacking me. Dooku gave me another mission, and that is if you or any of your men attack me, then I am inclined to watch over the coming battle and make sure his man is not killed, Naruto said emotionlessly as he looked into Kit's eyes. They are golden like the heavens but at the same time deadly as the pits of hell, Kit thought as he stared back. I'm sorry for the rash behavior of my old student. He is rather new to the Jedi ways. Kit said while watching as a clone trooper helped Nadar up. I am not one to know what it is to be a Jedi, but the ones I have faced so far are rash and stupid except for you. Let's hope you have what it takes to get out of here alive. Naruto said as he walked up to Kit and gave him Nadar's lightsaber. Why are you giving me this? You could have taken it, disarmed one of the Jedi that you are fighting. Kit asked. I have to follow orders. I am getting paid for this. Good luck, Jedi, Naruto said before pushing the red blinking button on the chair and dashing down the hallway that opened up to the room. As soon as Naruto ran out of the room, Nadar was just getting up. He has never experienced blow that hard before. It seems that we have another enemy in their ranks. Nadar, never give in to hatred like that again or you can make things even worse for us. Kit said as Nadar was ready to move again. Sorry master, it will never happen again. Nadar said grimly. Next time I see that bastard, he won't make it out in one piece, Nadar thought as they walked down the hall after Naruto. XXXXX. Guards, guards, a large robotic man shouted as he walked down the entrance to his lair. Where could they be? They are always guarding my lair, Grievous thought as he continued to walk down the hall. Suddenly he was surrounded with 3 clone troopers and a Jedi in front and 2 troopers and a Jedi behind him. We must ask for your surrender. Cooperate and maybe the Senate will be merciful. Kit said. It is you who will get no mercy. Grievous said as he drew two lightsabers. Ah, so he plans to fight them. This should be interesting, Naruto thought as he watched the fight from the shadows. XXXXX. Have you found where Viceroy is? Anakin asked via hologram. We have tracked them to a deserted area on the outer rim. We have Master Fisto and Nadar down to explore the area along with some troops. They have yet to communicate back to us. Ahsoka replied to her master. Have you found any information on this new mercenary? He is new to our list of mercenaries. We need to speak to him and get his information and group name if we are ever going to recruit him in later battles. Anakin said. I thought we didn't use mercenaries. Ahsoka said suspiciously. The Republic doesn't, but that doesn't mean we don't. Anakin said with a wink before disappearing. XXXXX. Master. They are entering the control room. A droid voice blared over the intercom. Grievous turned suddenly with his 3 bodyguards to try to intercept them. A white cloaked figure was seen standing further down the hall after Grievous turned. Come Nadar, get into the control room. Kit said from inside the room. Nadar must have seen Naruto as much hatred was in his eyes after the easy defeat at his hands. No, you go on, I'll hold them off, Nadar replied. There is no time to argue over something like this. We need to keep moving. Kit said, but before Nadar could reply the door slammed shut, blocking any help that he could provide. Nadar turned to look at the advancing bodyguards. Nadar quickly dispatched the 5 bodyguards with little trouble, but then came Grievous. Where is your master? Grievous asked. You will find out soon enough, you can't defeat us all. Nadar replied with venom. Of course I can. Grievous replied before sending a flurry of attacks at Nadar before finally getting into a deadlock. Nadar looked frightened. He was getting too far over his head. Even if he did somehow manage to kill Grievous, Naruto would be waiting at full health. This was a losing battle. Grievous pulled a pistol from a compartment on his back. Grievous ever so slightly pulled the trigger on the pistol, killing Nadar instantly. Grievous picked Nadar's lightsaber up and looked at the eye that was watching the fight. I will kill you all Jedi, do you hear me? Grievous shouted into the eye before walking away. Naruto was out of sight when Grievous turned and walked down the hallway. 1 down, 1 to go. Let's see if you can finish the last one, Naruto thought from the shadows. XXXXX. Going somewhere, Grievous said as he climbed up the landing pad. Kit pulled out his lightsaber while Grievous pulled out 4. Kit blocked 2 before jumping back into the fog and turning off his weapon. Grievous said before Kit jumped over him in the fog. Grievous started to spin his lightsabers around for a defense. Little did he know, Kit was standing behind him, poised to strike. Before Kit's lightsaber could make contact with Grievous, another black lightsaber blocked the attack, effectively saving Grievous's life. Why did you do that? Kit said as the power struggle continued with Naruto. By this time Grievous has turned to see the cloaked man wearing a straw hat. Naruto did a chakra push that pushed back the 2 combatants. Only doing my job, Naruto said simply. Well, get out of my way. Grievous said as he ran past Naruto and attacked Kit. Naruto simply watched as the 2 warriors duke it out. Naruto heard a ship entering the landing pad but paid no attention to it as his job was to protect Grievous from any fatal attack. The ship hovered next to the landing pad as he awaited his master to board. Kit noticed this and dashed past Grievous, but there was a problem. Naruto was in the way. As Kit neared Naruto, Kit began to think of a plan to get past him, but as he neared Naruto simply moved out of the way. Kit ran past but time seemed to slow as their eyes met as he ran by. Kit mouthed thank you and Naruto tipped his hat and grinned in return as Naruto watched Kit jump into his ship and fly away. Why didn't you stop him? Grievous shouted. I was only getting paid to protect you from any fatal wounds. Not kill a couple of Jedi, Naruto said emotionlessly. Grievous growled at this. If I ever see you in battle on the wrong side, be sure that I will have a special place for your lightsaber. It's not every day that you find a black lightsaber. I think that you have the only one that owns one in the entire galaxy. Again, let's hope you aren't on the wrong side in the future, Grievous said as he walked back into his lair. Naruto could only grin as a rope landed next to him. Naruto firmly grabbed the rope and was quickly pulled back up into the large vessel above him. This has been a productive first mission. XXXXX. I hope this chapter was all that you were looking for. I didn't put much Naruto in it, I know, but this is simply getting his name out into the galaxy. Hope you all like it. Key. Speaking. Thought. Mystical being speaking. Mystical being thought or jutsu. XXXXX equals scene break. Since I'm going back and looking over to correct my other chapters in my old story, I'm going to give you all a little gift. A long chapter. I know it's weird of my to do, but this is my first attempt at a long chapter. Hope you all are proud of me because I'm going to try and make long ones like this more often. Props to Killer Words for the beta. XXXXX. Naruto was sitting with his master, who taught him the ways of the lightsaber, in the cafeteria of their ship. Both were eating and talking how they met and how much they've learned from each other. Naruto wore his white cloak with black clouds stitched across it. The top of the cloak stretched from the top of his nose and stopped at his mid-shins, and completing his outfit with his traditional straw hat. His master wore similar attire except for the hat, and his white cloak didn't have black clouds across it. The inside of both of their cloaks were black. I'm glad we visited your planet. You are a vital part of our group, the master said as he took a sip of his tea. I'm glad you did too. At least you didn't land with guns blazing, Naruto said. Agreed, if we did then we would have messed up your plan. Great job by the way, the master complimented. Thanks. Hey, when did we meet? Naruto asked. About the time when all the nations entered Sound's borders. It was by pure luck that we landed where nobody could see us except for you, the master mulled. It was a miracle. Let's hope we have more of those in the future, Naruto said but flinched when something felt like it hit the back of his eyes. How are your eyes? I know that they are still sensitive after your fight back at your planet. Can you use your Mangekyo Sharingan yet? I already know that you are still far off from using your Renegan, the master asked. I can use my regular Sharingan now and I can activate the Mangekyo Sharingan, but I will have to stress my eyes too much to use it. I'm even further away from using my Renegan. My demon chakra still needs time to heal my eyes after the stress they went through back on my planet. Naruto responded as a man walked up to the two mercenaries. Someone wants to see you in the mission room, the man said before walking away. Wonder who it could be, the master said with a smile. I think I know who it is, Naruto said as he lifted himself from the chair and started for the mission room. Upon entering the mission room, Naruto noticed this. It had a round table located at the center of the room with a large projector in the center and several chairs surrounding the table. There was a hologram of a man wearing a Jedi cloak. Naruto grinned underneath his hat as he activated his normal Sharingan and slid on his emotionless mask. So far his master is the only one that was able to make Naruto take off his mask. This Jedi wanted to speak to you, the leader of their group said as he walked out of the room to leave the Jedi and Naruto to speak. His name is Rajan and he is a good person to everyone that is their group. Their group was known as the Black Knights because they were almost always able to get in and out of combat without a fight. Hello, Naruto, a male voice said over the hologram. Hello Anakin, Naruto replied emotionlessly. How do you know my name? Anakin said, throwing off his hood. Just a guess. Naruto lied. Now, what do you want? I asked you to come because we noticed that you are only doing missions for the separatists and disregarding ours. Why is that? Anakin asked. The separatists offered more money than you guys did. Offer more money than I might join you guys. Naruto said emotionlessly. It's true that Naruto has been doing more mission for the droids because they were offering more money. Over the last couple weeks, Naruto did 2 more missions for the separatists because they offered more money than the Republic did. Making the separatists think that he is a part of their army now. Well, we are in need of your help. One of our Jedi is in trouble and I think we are going to need your help. Anakin said. How much trouble? Naruto asked. There are several separatist ships bombing her ship. This mission will be a simple one. Save as many men on the ship as possible. Anakin said. It seems easy enough for you. Why pay for me to help you when you can do it yourself? Naruto asked. In reality, Anakin just wanted to get better relations with the white-cloaked man with the Republic and himself. There is said to be a lot of ships and we are going to need all the help we can get. Anakin lied. Naruto saw straight through the lie, but decided to play along. Whatever. How much are you willing to pay? Naruto asked. Pricing for him has skyrocketed ever since his first mission where he helped recapture Gunray and return him to the separatists. 20,000 credits. Anakin offered. 30,000 credits. Naruto countered. 25,000 credits. Anakin said coldly. Deal. Naruto said with a grin that could not be seen by anybody. We will pick you up at Sector 33. Meet us there in 30 minutes because we need to be there now. Anakin said before disappearing from the hologram. Naruto's master, known as Old Man Sleek, entered the room soon after. Old Man Sleek was about 50 years old but still in tip-top shape and ready for a fight. He had gray hair and a short beard. What was it? Sleek asked. A Jedi known as Anakin asked for my help in a rescue mission. I accepted, Naruto said, still looking at the empty holopad. The Republic, EH. This is going to be your first mission with them, isn't? Sleek asked. Yeah, hopefully it will go right. Naruto said turning to Sleek. How much did they ask for? I got 25,000 out of them. Not that bad. Normally the Republic tries to lower the price on mercenaries but it seems that whoever you were talking to was a fair man. So it seems, Naruto said before turning toward his fighter. You finally got that thing down? Sleek asked, walking with him. Somewhat. I'm not an ace pilot by all means but I do know to do the conventional things that all pilots know to get around. Naruto said as they entered the docks. His fighter was much like Anakin's except smaller and faster. Naruto also had the light speed attachment like the Jedi did. Well, good luck on your next mission. Sleek said as he waved to Naruto as he hopped into his fighter. Sleek, we got a mission for you. A man shouted from the open door that they left open. Gotcha. Good luck Naruto, Sleek said before walking back into the ship. Naruto easily started the ship up and flew out of the mothership. Naruto quickly entered light speed to Sector 33. XXXXX. Naruto disappeared from the hologram Anakin was using in his personal quarters. I need to get to know this strange fighter before he strikes any more blows against the Republic, Anakin thought. Over the last couple of weeks there has been major advances on the separatist line against the Republic. The separatists are giving the honor to a lone mercenary whose name is starting to spread across the universe like wildfire. The name is Naruto and many people are starting to look into it. Come in here, Anakin ordered to a trooper that was standing outside his door. Yes, General, the trooper asked. Set course to Sector 33. We are getting a little reinforcements, Anakin said. Yes, General. The trooper answered as he made his way to the bridge. About 5 minutes later, a red-skinned Padawan burst through his doors. Why are we changing course? We are steering a little to far east. We are not going to end up at the right location. Ahsoka shouted. Anakin simply grinned. You'll see, Anakin said smiling. XXXXX. Where is he? Anakin thought as they waited for what everyone else thought was nothing. Ahsoka was starting to get irritated. Why were they here doing nothing? This is stupid. Why are just sitting here when we could be helping Master Sakura? Ahsoka shouted in anger. Anakin never flinched as he turned to Ahsoka. Calm yourself, Ahsoka. Be patient and good things may come. Anakin replied calmly. This was weird. Anakin was always brash and bold but now he is calm and collective. What are we doing here? Ahsoka started but was cut off by a trooper on the communications rig. Sir, we have an unknown fighter wanting to board. What is our next action? The trooper asked, waiting for orders. Let him in, Anakin replied. Ahsoka was shocked. Why were they letting an unknown fighter into their battleship? When Ahsoka turned to ask Anakin why they were letting a positional enemy into their ship, he was gone. Probably going to the hull to meet our guest, Ahsoka thought as she turned and ran to the hull to meet up with Anakin. Upon entering the hull she saw a fighter similar to Anakin's except smaller and painted black. Anakin was standing in front of the ship with 2 clone troopers flanking his left and right. The hatch to the fighter unlocked and slowly opened. The glass on the hatch was black but they were sure that the pilot could see out of it. Once Ahsoka got one look at the man jumping out of the fighter, her entire being was full of anger. He was the one that killed all those men at the edge of that cliff on Yaki. Ahsoka thought in anger as she watched Naruto walk up to Anakin. Anakin extended his hand to the white-cloaked man who took the hand in acceptance. Master, he was the one that killed over 100 men on the cliff in Yanchi. Why is he helping us? Ahsoka asked in anger. Anakin turned to look Ahsoka in the eye. Naruto is a mercenary, so that means he follows orders in order to get his money. It doesn't matter who he kills. To him, he can change sides in a matter of minutes and now, he is finally on our side. Anakin said as he returned his gaze to Naruto and smiled. Naruto nodded in return with his hat still on. Ahsoka was still angry with Naruto for killing all those men at Yanchi. Let's get to the battlefield and help Master Sakura, Anakin said to the trooper to his left. Yes sir, I'll go tell the men in the bridge, the trooper said and ran off to deliver the orders. Naruto continued to look into Ahsoka's eyes. He could see the hate and anger in her eyes for what he has done. Naruto was disgusted that he was ordered to kill the remaining men that were surrendering on that fateful day. But an order was an order and he was inclined to follow them. This is going to be an interesting mission, Naruto thought as Anakin showed him the way to the bridge with the remaining clone and Ahsoka following close behind. Most of the clones didn't trust Naruto either after hearing what happened on Yanchi. XXXXX. Where is Anakin? Sakura shouted to the commander next to her. I have no idea but they are sending rocket droids over. The commander shouted while pointing at the fleet of rocket droids heading straight at them. Sakura pressed the button that activated the intercom. All men prepare for enemy boarding. Sakura shouted as an allied battleship exploded to their left. Damn it, where is he? Sakura shouted as the rocket droids landed on the ship and entering it through the many holes scattered throughout the ship. Just then, another battleship entered the area. It was a Republic ship. About damn time, shouted the commander as Sakura already left to fight the rocket droids that were in the ship. Transports were coming to their ship to aid in their evacuation. XXXXX. Anakin, Naruto, and Ahsoka were all in the same transport as they neared the damaged battleship. This is taking too long. Anakin shouted as he prepared to jump out the ship and onto one of the rocket droids that were whizzing by. Are you sure that is wise? Ahsoka asked but before Anakin could answer her question, Naruto jumped out of the ship and onto a passing rocket droid, making both of them fly down and into a hole that was in the side of the ship. I already like this guy. Anakin shouted with a wide grin as he jumped out the transport after him. Ahsoka shook her head at the antics of the 2 crazy men. Halfway down to the ship, Anakin saw fire spew from one of the holes. What the fuck was that? Anakin thought as he aimed for the hole that the fire shot out of. Anakin crashed into the hole and readied himself for battle but was met by a charred hull with several melted rocket droids scattered across the hall. Naruto was at the end of the hall with his lightsaber stuck into a rocket droid. The droid fell to the ground, lifeless. Ahsoka's ship crashed into a hole behind Anakin but Anakin never flinched as he observed the area. Ahsoka was also shocked by the scene. Come, we don't have all day, Naruto said as he continued to run down the hall. Anakin, Ahsoka, and the clones that were with them snapped out of it and followed Naruto toward the sound of battle. Sakura was having a hard time fighting off the droids that surrounded her and her men. Where are they? Sakura thought as she felt a droid approach her from behind. She swiftly turned around to attack the foe but noticed it wasn't moving. She looked down to see a black beam jutting from the poor droid's stomach. The droid promptly fell to the side to reveal a white-cloaked man holding his black lightsaber where it was when he impaled the droid in the stomach. You, Sakura shouted as she readied herself for the battle against Naruto. Naruto dashed forward toward Sakura while holding his lightsaber in his standard reverse grip. He dashed past her with ease and started to attack the droids shooting at her and her men. What? Sakura thought as Anakin and the rest of his force approached her and started to help Naruto. Sakura soon entered the fray. Why is Naruto helping us? The Republic doesn't hire mercenaries, Sakura said as she impaled another droid. Naruto was further up in the battle. True that the Republic doesn't hire mercenaries but that doesn't mean we don't, Anakin said as he force pushed a droid into another droid. At least he isn't on their side, Sakura muttered. They finally broke free of the fray and were able to reach clear area. We need to get off this ship. Let's get to the escape ship, Sakura shouted as they ran down a hall toward said ship. As they approached the door to the ship, the battleship started to explode. Anakin turned to see the fire coming straight for them. Everyone get down, Anakin shouted as he force pushed everyone into the ship and turned to force the door close. The fire was too large and quickly destroyed the door, injuring Anakin and knocking him unconscious. XXXXX. On the other side of the door, Ahsoka slammed her fists against the metal door between them and Anakin. No, we got to save him, Ahsoka shouted, but noticed that they were down one. Where is Naruto? Ahsoka asked curiously. XXXXX. Naruto was still on the other side of the door with Anakin. When Anakin pushed Naruto through the door, Naruto managed to dash back through the door at the last second to help Anakin. Naruto picked Anakin up and threw him over his shoulder. Damn, you're heavy, Naruto said to the unconscious Anakin over his shoulder. Step away from the door, Naruto shouted as he poured some of his black chakra into his hand. His hand began to glow black as he charged his chakra into his hand. Since Naruto was still learning what the force was, Naruto had to rely on his chakra for the moment, that is if he even can use the force. As soon as Naruto saw it fit that he had enough power to blow the door open, he let loose on the door. The large metal door exploded and hit the other side of the wall with tremendous force. The spectators were shocked by this. Nobody can use that much force to blow open a door like that. Can they? Let's go, Naruto said emotionlessly as walked by the shocked spectators. Everyone got into positions as they exited the destroyed battleship. They managed to get out of the dock at the bottom of the ship just as the blast made it to the end of the massacred hall. The commander of Anakin's ship popped up on the escape ship as they were making their way back to Anakin's ship. Anakin's condition may be critical. We need to get him back on board the Resolute, Sakura said to the commander. Are all Jedi this reckless? The commander asked. Just the good ones, Sakura said as they began to dock their ship until a droid fighter hit their ship with a couple of blasts, damaging their lightspeed module. What is going on? The commander asked. We are going into lightspeed, Rex said as he desperately tried to fix the problem. Well, fix it, Ahsoka shouted. I'm trying, Rex shouted back. Get out of the docks now, Sakura yelled to the trooper piloting the ship. XXXXX. Naruto placed Anakin onto a medical bed that was inside the ship. A medical droid soon walked up to the two. I will take it from here, the medical droid said as it got to work on Anakin. Naruto nodded as he sealed away his hat. Naruto felt the ship attach and detach from the battleship. Something's wrong, Naruto thought as he heard the engines power up for light speed. This should be interesting, Naruto thought as he started to walk up to the bridge of the little ship. XXXXX. The little ship shot off into light speed as soon as the ship left the docks, sending them to who knows where. While they were in light speed, Ahsoka and Naruto passed by each other. Ahsoka going to see her master and Naruto to the bridge. Where is he going? Ahsoka thought as she turned to watch Naruto walk into the bridge. Upon entering the bridge, Sakura walked out of the bridge to speak to Ahsoka and see how Anakin is doing, leaving the commander and himself to watch the course they are taking. Shit, I can't fix the light speed module or the navigation system, Rex shouted as he continued to mess with the electronics in the ship. Looks like we've got worse news, the commander, known as Cody, said to the three men in the room. What could be possibly worse than this? Rex asked sarcastically. We are heading straight for a star and we can't stop, Cody said calmly. Well, this is interesting, Naruto said emotionlessly. I'll go tell the others, Cody said as he got up and left the bridge. About 3 minutes later, Ahsoka, Sakura, and Cody ran back into the room and to the front of the bridge where Naruto and Rex were. Ahsoka and Cody began to fiddle with the ship's controls in hope that they could get it working. It's no use. The systems are fried, Cody said, giving up on fixing the ship. Shut down all power circuits to reset the coordinates, Sakura said. But that will shut off Anakin's life support, Ahsoka complained. Look, if we don't do this then we are all going to die, Naruto said emotionlessly. Sakura looked at Naruto with a grin. Looks like he isn't as one-sided as I thought, Sakura thought as everyone seemed to get the picture and went their stations. We're cutting it close, Rex said. On 3, Naruto said. 1, 2, 3. Everyone shut the power to the ship, pushing everyone except for Ahsoka, Cody who were in the pilot's chairs and Naruto. Naruto's feet were emitting a black aura as he stuck to the ground. It looked like Naruto was having trouble keeping his footing though. The star was right in front of them as they continued toward the star. Rex was shot back from his position and smacked Sakura off of the switch that turned the power back on. Turn the power back on, Cody shouted. Naruto looked over from his position to where Sakura was supposed and noticed that she wasn't there. Naruto began to walk over to the lever that turned the power back on. Hurry up, Koi shouted again. Naruto was finally able to put his hand onto the lever and shove it up so the power could come back on. Everyone that was against the wall fell to the ground while Naruto looked like a great force stopped pushing him. Naruto breathed out and felt relieved. The ship did a slingshot around the star and was heading straight for a planet. Well, we aren't going to hit a star but we are going to hit that planet, Ahsoka said, pointing out the window. Brace for impact, Cody shouted as they were about to hit the ground. But before they were about to hit the ground, Naruto had to throw in his 2 cents. You guys suck at driving, Naruto stated emotionlessly just before they hit the surface. The ship hit the surface with tremendous force as they slid across the ground and finally coming to a halt at the center of a valley. Everyone jumped up from their places as they started to run out of the ship as certain parts of the ship started to explode. Ahsoka and Sakura ran into the infirmary to grab Anakin and leave the ship. Not many people made it out of the ship alive. Outside there were 3 clone troopers, Rex, Cody, Ahsoka, Sakura, a whipped-out Naruto, and an unconscious Anakin. Make a shelter for Anakin. Anything will do, Sakura ordered to the 3 troopers. Yes, General, they said in unison as they began to build a shelter. 10 minutes later, Anakin was lying down inside the tent with Naruto breathing heavily sitting up against one of the posts on the open side. What is wrong with you? Ahsoka asked vilely. She still hasn't forgiven him for the death of all those men on the planet Yanchi. It's none of your concern, Naruto replied. Sakura asked next, a little more nicely. Please, let us help you. You are part of the group now. We can help, Sakura said reassuringly. Naruto looked her in the eyes with his normal golden Sharingan, looking for any deception. I take it you saw the back stuff on the bottom of my feet while I was trying to get to the lever to turn the power back on, Naruto asked Sakura. She nodded to his question. Hey, yeah, I remember that stuff too. What was that stuff? Rex asked. It's a certain power my people from my planet have that allows us to do several different things such as stick to walls and so on. Nobody on my planet has this black stuff. Everybody has blue chakra and not black. Naruto explained. I take it the black stuff is called chakra. Why is yours so different from everybody else's? Sakura pressed. Naruto's face turned from emotionless to depressed in an instant. I would rather not talk about it, Naruto said as he leaned back against the post and looked into the setting sun. From the angle that Sakura and Ahsoka were at, the sun shined brightly into his golden eyes as he watched the sun lower. Anyways, I never really stuck myself to an object as something with that much force was pushed against me, so I used a little too much chakra. Now I am running low on my chakra and need rest, and since my chakra is special, it takes longer to regenerate, Naruto said as he looked back at the two girls. Out of curiosity, Ahsoka had two last questions. What would happen if you ran out of chakra? And, why are your eyes golden like that? No other creature in the galaxy has eyes as bright and metallic as yours, Ahsoka asked. My eyes give me another special ability that helps me greatly, but I am weakened and am not able to use it to its full potential. It is called the Sharingan. As for running out of chakra, if I run out of it, I die, Naruto said calmly. Everyone was surprised that his life was so heavily weighed on this stuff. Well then you need your rest then. You will be staying here to watch over Anakin while the rest of us head out to find medical supplies, Sakura said. No, we can't leave Anakin here with a potential murderer. I'll stay with my master, Ahsoka offered. No, we need your help if we are going to find anything any quicker. Naruto will stay here with Anakin while the rest of us search of civilization, Sakura said. Ahsoka didn't like the idea of leaving her master with a potential killer, but she followed her orders and went with Sakura. Hold on master, just hang in there for just a little longer and everything will all right, Ahsoka said to her unconscious master. As she stood up she looked at Naruto who was still breathing heavily. Don't worry Ahsoka, I'll look after him, Naruto said as he returned his gaze to the sunset. You better, Ahsoka mumbled. Good luck Naruto, Sakura said to Naruto. Naruto nodded his head in response. All right everyone, let's get moving. The group of 7 ran off into the tall grass, in hopes of finding help for their 2 downed men. XXXXX. Wow, this is my first long chapter. Woot for me, hope you all like it. Carrot key, speaking, thought, mystical being speaking, mystical being thought or jutsu. XXXXX equals scene break. I was going to start on fixing my chapters but I wanted to continue this story. Sorry but I really want to write this story. Oh, another long chapter. Woot, hopefully I can keep this up. Carrot XXXXX. It was starting to get dark as the 5 troopers, Jedi and Padawan continued to search for any signs of life the planet. So let me get this straight. We are looking for a giant tree, Rex asked again as they continued to run through the empty fields of this planet. Yes, the piece of bark that we found earlier backs up that theory, Sakura answered. She looked down to the young Padawan running beside her, to her gaze on the ground. I know what you're thinking, young one. He will be fine with Naruto, Sakura said to Ahsoka, making Ahsoka jump from the words that were sent toward her. How can you be sure? This is the mercenary that slaughtered all those men on Yanchi. What if he was ordered to get Anakin alone so he could get a clean kill? How can you be on his side in all this? Ahsoka shouted to her temporary master. Ahsoka, calm down. You are in over your head. Anakin personally paid Naruto for 2 reasons. 1, to help in keeping me alive from the droids, and 2, is his personal bodyguard for the rest of this mission. You see, Naruto is being paid to protect Anakin for the rest of this mission, and since the mission is still in process, he has to go along with it unless he gets paid by another person during the mission, Sakura replied calmly. So that is why Naruto jumped into the ship before Anakin. He was clearing the floor out before Anakin so there wouldn't be any harm on the landing, Ahsoka thought as they continued to run. Only for her expression to darken. But, he can still change sides in an instant. If he gets the word to betray Anakin for more money than he will, Ahsoka thought as they continued to run off into the flooding grasslands. XXXXX. Naruto was still looking out over the grasslands at the sunset until he heard movement. Naruto turned and looked into the tent that was set up for Anakin. Anakin slowly began to wake but was having a hard time moving. Anakin's sight caught Naruto as Naruto again turned back out into the grasslands. Who is still here? Anakin managed out. Just you and me, Naruto replied emotionlessly as Anakin tried to sit up but was having a hard time in doing so. Naruto turned and picked Anakin up bridal style and placed him on the other pole of the tent. Naruto sat back in his original place on the other pole, making the two facing the same direction as Naruto was earlier. The two continued to stare out into the setting sun with a silence that seemed unbreakable. I see that you are in a bad position, with your heavy breathing and everything. Did you use too much chakra? Anakin asked. Earlier, while they were making their way to help Sakura, Anakin asked why Naruto chose the lighting in his lightsaber and where he got it. Naruto told Anakin about chakra, the same speech that he gave to Ahsoka and Sakura. Once asked again where he got the black crystal for his lightsaber, Naruto said that there is only one black crystal in the entire universe and he had to kill someone for it. Anakin quieted down after that. Yeah, Naruto replied. In truth, since Naruto has demon chakra and is making it a human body, it makes it really hard to remake chakra in his body. So, the process is longer than most humans that have chakra. So, where are the others? Anakin asked. Went go seek medical supplies for you, Naruto replied. What about you? Did they offer you any? Anakin asked, turning to Naruto. Naruto continued to look forward. I'm fine, Naruto said emotionlessly. Anakin flinched at this. That's strange. Ahsoka always gives other people a chance before she acts like this. Anakin said more to himself than to Naruto, but Naruto heard what Anakin said. She probably thinks of me as a cold, heartless killer after what happened on Yanchi. It doesn't matter. I'm used to this treatment, Naruto said emotionlessly. For once in a long time, Anakin has felt sorry for someone. What do you mean? Anakin asked. On my old planet, I was treated like I am treated by your apprentices treating me now. After an entire life of being treated like you're the scum of the planet, you get used to it, Naruto said emotionlessly. Anakin truly felt bad now. What about your family? Didn't they ever help you through all this? Anakin asked in hopes to brighten the conversation even though the sun was on its last few seconds of light. Wrong decision. I never had a family. They were gone when I was born, Naruto replied. I'm sore. Anakin started but was cut off by a message that was sent to Naruto over his receiver. Gunray popped into sight on Naruto's receiver. Great job on Yanchi Naruto. I'm glad that you went through with my order on Cliff 19 but I got another mission for you, Gunray said with an evil smile. What do you wish? Naruto replied emotionlessly. Anakin was surprised that Naruto simply didn't hang up on the bastard. I have reports telling me that Anakin Skywalker is wounded and helpless on this sector of the Outer Rim. Your mission is to track him down and kill him. We are offering 50,000 credits for his head, Gunray said proudly. Anakin looked at Naruto in eyes as Naruto looked down at Gunray. I'll see what I can do, Naruto said as he looked over at Anakin. The only light coming from the light that the hologram was producing onto Naruto's face as his golden Sharingan came to life. The hologram disappeared, leaving behind complete darkness. Two more lights appeared in the shape of sabers. One blue, the other black. XXXXX. We need your help. Please, we have friends that are in need of medical help. We need your help, Sakura pleaded. They have been talking to the commoners on this planet for a while now and have been making some progress with them. They demanded to not be intertwined with the war, but everyone knows that you must choose a side eventually. We will not be caught up in your war, but we cannot ignore a plea for help. Take my son, Wag 2, he is a healer. He will heal your friends, but you must leave the blue one here as consolidation, Lerman, the leader of the village, said. Thank you for your help. We are in your department, Ahsoka said as Cody, Wag 2, and herself ran off down the path toward their downed allies. XXXXX. Kit Fisto was walking down the halls of the Senate building toward the communications room for his next mission. He was still a little depressed that his apprentice tried to take on Grievous by himself. Grievous was much too powerful to take on by yourself unless you have an advantage somehow. Kit entered the communications room only to hear something out of the ordinary. I think we have conflicting information. You say that Anakin hired Naruto as a bodyguard for his mission to rescue Sakura but Gunray has also hired him to kill Anakin, said the trooper talking to the other trooper. That sounds about right, replied the hologram. Does that mean Naruto is using this cover in order to kill Anakin? I thought Naruto was more honorable than that, Kit thought as he went to exit the communications room until he heard some much needed information. They are said to be in this sector so whenever you get the chance, send some men there to investigate, said the hologram trooper. I will stop you before you can do the deed, Naruto, Kit thought before walking down to the dock that held his fighter and all his men. XXXXX. Ahsoka, Rex, Cody, and Wag 2 ran as fast as they could to the crash site in hopes that they could make it in time to heal Anakin of any fatal injuries. They ran as fast as their legs could carry them only to hear sounds of combat in the distance. The only thing going through her head was, that backstabbing asshole, he tried to kill my master. I'll show him, Ahsoka thought as they continued to run toward the sound of combat. What they were met by took them all by surprise. There were at least 7 dead bird things straight across the ground. Anakin was lying on the ground exhausted with minor scratches and Naruto on his knees next to him with a hole in his chest and breathing heavily. XXXXX flashback Naruto's and Anakin's POW. The two continued to stare into each other's eyes as they readied themselves to pounce onto their enemy. They got up and walked closer together with their lightsabers still on. Anakin readied himself for the coming attack that Naruto would surely bring. Naruto dashed forward but instead of attacking Anakin, Naruto hit a giant bird that was about to attack Anakin from behind. They heard 2 other ruffles that were probably the dead bird's hunting friends running off. Anakin continued to look Naruto in the eyes. Why did save me? Aren't you going to kill me for the money? Anakin asked a little shaken from the entire ordeal. No, I will continue your mission, Naruto said putting his lightsaber away. Anakin Zahn did the same. But why? They even offered more credits than I did. Anakin pushed. Naruto shrugged. Because I never finished a mission for the Republic yet, Naruto said while sitting back down in his spot. Anakin soon followed with the refreshness that he didn't have to fight against Naruto. You should get some sleep. You are going to need it after all those INJ, Naruto said while looking over at Anakin only to find him sleeping against the post. Naruto smiled and picked Anakin up and put him back on the bed. The next morning Naruto awoke to the sense of several pairs of eyes looking at him from the tall grass. Naruto shakily stood up and drew his lightsaber. Just then, 2 of the bird things that attacked them earlier jumped out of the tall grass and charged him. Naruto swiftly slipped to the left side of the bird and cut it down its right side. The bird crashed into the tent, effectively knocking the tent from over Anakin and waking him. Anakin looked out at where Naruto was, only to find him kicking the second in the head and jabbing it in the temple with his lightsaber. Anakin shakily stood and drew his lightsaber as 3 more popped out in front of Naruto, with a 4th from behind. Anakin force-pulled the one attacking Naruto from behind and sliced off its head while Naruto shot through one-handed hand seals. Lightning tip no jutsu, Naruto called out as lightning started to travel up the arm that was holding his lightsaber. Naruto held out his middle finger and index finger and pointed toward the 3 incoming birds. A blast of blue lightning shot across the field and smashed into the 3 attacking birds. Suddenly, Anakin dropped to the ground from exhaustion as a bird jumped out of the grass near him. The bird brought its razor-sharp beak down upon Anakin with the attempt to kill. Naruto sprinted over to the bird and tackled the bird head-on as to stop any damage from happening to Anakin. Naruto had his lightsaber stuck into the bird's heart, but as Naruto got off the bird's razor-sharp beak slid out of Naruto as blood started to spill out of the wound. Naruto got up and walked over to Naruto and dropped to his knees next to him. Anakin looked at Naruto and smiled before passing out from both exhaustion and pain. You are safe for a little while longer. If I still had all my powers, then those creatures would have no problem. At least I kept you safe, Naruto thought with emotionless eyes as the blood continued to spill out of his wound. Naruto heard footsteps run up to the scene. About time they got here, Naruto thought as he looked at the people entering the field. Naruto forgot to withdraw his lightsaber as well as Anakin. XXXXX end of flashback. Everyone took in the scene that surrounded the two lightsaber-wielding men except for Ahsoka. Ahsoka was looking straight at Naruto, who was kneeling over Anakin with both of their lightsabers out. Ahsoka grew angry and ran up to Naruto and punched him. Naruto hit the ground without a fight as Ahsoka grabbed the collar of his white cloak and pulled his face to hers. What did you do to my master? Ahsoka shouted in Naruto's face. Naruto remained silent as the blood from his chest and mouth continued to dribble down his body. Anakin muttered something, gaining Ahsoka's attention. Once Ahsoka heard that Anakin was awake, she ran over to him. Are you okay? Wag-2, please come over here and heal him. He is in need of medical assistance, Ahsoka said. Wag-2 looked over to Naruto, who was on his hands and knees, and walked over to Ahsoka. Ahsoka looked back down to her master. Meet Wag-2. He's a healer, he'll patch you right up, Ahsoka said cheerily as Wag-2 was now over Anakin. I'll patch you right up, Wag-2 said grinning. Anakin was now slightly awake. Naruto started to spit out blood while he was on his hands and knees. Naruto continued to try and get up, only to fall back down. Rex started to walk over to Naruto to help him but was stopped by Ahsoka. Let him get up by himself. If he killed that many people alone, then he can stand up alone, Ahsoka said venomously. Rex looked at Ahsoka surprised. She has never been that mean to anyone before, not even Gunray. What is with you, General? You are never this cruel to people. Why him? Rex asked. Because he killed all those men without even thinking twice. He murdered your brothers because of money. What do you think of that? Ahsoka shouted as Naruto slowly but surely got his feet. Look, I am mad at him because of that too, but he is a mercenary. That's his job. Now he on our side and is trying to help us. Learn to forgive, Rex shouted back. This caught Ahsoka by surprise. Never has Rex shouted at anybody. Naruto slowly trudged past them, holding his chest wound all the way. Everyone turned to him as he began to walk down the path that Ahsoka and company took. Where are you going? Cody asked. Naruto looked him straight in the eye when he spoke. To the place where you got the medical supplies from, Naruto responded emotionlessly. But you're bleeding. Let me heal you first. Wag-2 shouted as he grabbed the back of Naruto's cloak. Naruto turned to Wag-2 with a little surprise in his eyes. You will heal me? Naruto asked surprise. This caught everybody off guard. Has anybody ever given you something? Wag-2 asked while still holding onto Naruto's cloak. Never. I always had to work for I got, Naruto responded as he began to wobble. Rex quickly caught Naruto as he fell to the ground. Wag-2 quickly got to work on Naruto. He lost too much blood is all. I managed to seal up the stab wound in his chest so he should be fine, Wag-2 said. So my master still manages to beat him even while hurt. Maybe he isn't as strong as I thought he was, Ahsoka thought as they put Anakin on the stretcher. What about Naruto? Rex asked as Ahsoka and Cody picked up the stretcher. I can walk, Naruto said as he held out his arm. Rex grabbed his arm and pulled Naruto off the ground. Rex hoisted one arm over his shoulders as they began to travel back to the village. XXXXX. Sakura was talking to the leader of the village when the group appeared at the top of the hill next to the little village. As they entered the town, Sakura walked up to them, only to notice that Naruto was badly injured. What happened? Sakura asked. We'll talk about it later, Ahsoka replied before Naruto could speak. Naruto shook his head as Wag-2 showed them to a larger hut where he could heal their injuries. Anakin and Naruto were placed in the same hut. What happened? Sakura asked again as everyone was occupied with their two downed friends. I think Naruto has gained a mission to kill my master, Ahsoka whispered to Sakura. Sakura was shocked by this until Cody and Rex walked up to them and joined in on the conversation. I don't think Naruto was trying to kill Anakin, sir, Cody said. Sakura was now listening to Cody and Rex now. Sakura remembered the hatred that was put toward Naruto earlier. Why is that? Sakura asked. When we showed up there were at least 7 of those bird things that got our other boys on the way here. They were probably the ones that attacked them, Rex said to Sakura. Sakura remembered those wretched things. Sakura turned to Ahsoka. I see. Ahsoka, I'm very disappointed in you. Please learn to forgive him, Sakura said. She remembered when she got the report that Naruto slaughtered over 100 clones on Yanchi and she was also angry with him as well, but she has learned to forgive him, as it was his job. Most of the younger generation Jedi are not as likely to forgive as the older generation though. I will when I get Anakin's story personally, Ahsoka said before walking off. Rex shook his head before he told Sakura what happened at the crash site. XXXXX. Anakin continued to stare at the ceiling of the hut that he was placed in. Naruto was sleeping next to him as Naruto recharged his chakra at a much faster pace. Anakin turned his head to his temporary bodyguard and smiled. Anakin was indeed barely awake when Naruto stopped the bird from attacking him and knew the wound that was dealt to Naruto. Ahsoka opened the door to the hut and walked inside. Master, Ahsoka whispered out in hopes to catch him awake. I'm awake, Snips. What is it? Anakin asked while still on his back. What happened at the crash site? Did this filthy shit hurt you? Ahsoka said while pointing at Naruto. Anakin looked at Ahsoka with anger in his eyes. How dare you talk about Naruto like that? He may be a mercenary but that doesn't give you any say in who he is. Anakin shouted. But he may have gotten a mission that would put your life in jeopardy. Ahsoka shouted back. Anakin settled down and shook his head. He did get a mission to kill me, but he isn't going through with it. And that stab wound in his chest isn't from me, it was from of those birds, Anakin said, looking over to Naruto. Naruto was still concentrating on healing and recharging his chakra. I still don't trust him, Ahsoka muttered before walking, heard what Ahsoka said and shook his head. You still have a long way to go, Anakin thought before falling asleep next to his bodyguard. XXXXX. The next came fast as Naruto was now standing up and walking around as well as Anakin. Anakin still had a limp but was able to fight. Naruto was currently looking up into the sky when Rex walked up next to him. Rex was about to say something but stopped when Naruto pointed up into the air. What are you doing? Rex asked as he looked to where Naruto was pointing. Look up there with your binoculars, Naruto said simply as he put his arm down. Rex looked through the high-powered binoculars to see separatist ship landing near the village. Clanker ships, Rex said as he looked to Naruto. Get everyone out of the village. If they find us here then they will slaughter everyone here, Naruto said as he walked back the village at a calm pace. Rex sprinted back to the village as he said over his communicator that they needed to leave. Naruto rounded the corner to the back side of the village to be met by Ahsoka. Naruto raised an eyebrow at this. Did you call those droids? Ahsoka demanded. Naruto said nothing as he walked past the Padawan. As he began to round another corner, Naruto turned back to the steaming Padawan. No, Naruto said emotionlessly and continued to walk toward the rendezvous point at the back of the village. Ahsoka ran to the corner that Naruto took to see that he wasn't there. How did he do that? Ahsoka thought. She shrugged it off and started off to the rendezvous point. Once she got there, she was met by Anakin, Rex, Cody, Sakura, and Naruto. Alright, let's move, Anakin whispered as they moved into the tall grass to avoid capture. As they furthered themselves away from the village they stopped for a break. How did the separatists know we were here? Cody asked out loud. Probably just a coincidence, Anakin said, silencing Ahsoka before she could start. Sakura turned and noticed a little droid hiding in the tall grass. Get it, Ahsoka shouted as Ahsoka, Cody, and Rex ran after the spy droid. Sakura turned to the two who didn't run after the droid. I'll handle him. You go play tag with the droid, Naruto said before picking Anakin up bridal style and started to walk toward the giant tree. Sakura nodded and began walking down the path. After the droid was destroyed, they climbed up a tree only to be met by Anakin and Naruto. What took you so long? Anakin asked playfully. The newcomers shook their heads as they walked up to the duo who was looking at a rather large separatist base and a large cannon. What is that? Sakura asked. Don't know yet. They haven't fired it yet, Anakin replied as they waited for the cannon to fire off a shot so they could see what happens. Two droids walked out into the center of the field. What are they doing? Ahsoka whispered as she noticed Naruto had his normal Sharingan on and watching how the machine works. A blast was heard from the cannon as a round was sent flying towards the two droids. So they are using the two droids as test subjects. Interesting, Naruto muttered as he watched how the machine fired down the littlest thing. The shell hit the two droids directly, making a large fire spread from it, killing all living things but leaving the two droids unharmed. It doesn't affect droids but kills all living things near ground zero. This new technology has certainly caught my interests, Naruto muttered as he continued to watch the fire spread. What kind of shell is that? Anakin asked out loud. It's called an incendiary shell. Once it makes contact with its target, it bursts into fire and spreads like wildfire. I don't know what type of chemical they used to stop the droids from being hurt but it's a start, Naruto explained as the four passed right underneath them. Well, weapon or not, we need to get that ship of theirs so we can get off this planet, Anakin said as they waited until dark to attack the base. As the group approached the base in the dead of night, they pushed their backs against the wall of the base. Anakin turned to Naruto. You think you can do it? Anakin asked. Naruto nodded and rushed up the side of the base. The others watched in surprise. How can he do that? Sakura asked in astonishment. Anakin quietly laughed. Don't worry about it. He is going to open the doors to let us inside so be ready, Anakin said with a smile as they approached the front gate. There were two droids guarding the front gate. Get ready, now, Anakin whispered as they charged the two unfortunate guards. One managed to get a shot off which missed everyone completely but still alerted the other guards. Hey, what is going on? Wait, there is one in here with us. Blast him, shouted a droid guard as intense fight could be heard on the inside of the base. Damn it, how are we going to help him? Rex asked. Anakin started to slice a hole through the thick metal door but stopped when all the fighting stopped. Who won? Sakura asked out loud as Anakin withdrew his lightsaber. The door suddenly started to open, revealing Naruto with his back turned to the group. Destroyed droids strayed across the ground and on the walls. Fire illuminated the scene as Naruto turned to the four onlookers. Keeping those first couple of guards quiet a little hard, Naruto said emotionlessly. Anakin grinned and shook his head as he started to walk towards the ship but stopped when Cody called his name. General, we have portable shields. Should we bring them along? Cody asked as the others boarded the ship. Good idea, Commander. Bring them with us, Anakin said as they all piled onto the ship. Ready to face the threat that was going to befall the creatures of this planet. XXXXX. I did not ask you to defend us, the leader of the Lurmen. This battle is going to happen whether you like it or not. You can stand by your beliefs, but let us stand by ours, Anakin said. The leader simply turned and left as Ahsoka walked up to Wag-2. Thank you for what you are trying to do. My father is very strong-willed and set in tradition. Many others agree with me but we wear Rose under a very strict code. We must respect it even if we don't agree, Wag-2 said before walking off. Ahsoka shook her head before walking back to help with moving the large nuts into position. They are holding position, Rex shouted down to the others. They won't move because they fire from long range first, Anakin said as Naruto jumped over the nuts. A shell was incoming when the shields were set up to stop said shell. The shield hit right in front of Naruto as Ahsoka jumped down next to him. Why are you helping us? You can turn on us at any minute, but here you are, still helping us, Ahsoka said while watching the come down to the earth. You hate me, don't you? Naruto said emotionlessly, scaring Ahsoka. When Ahsoka didn't say anything, Naruto knew that she still hated him for what he did on Yanchi. The shell hit and the fire was racing towards them. You want me to be dead, don't you? Naruto said again. The fire was about halfway to the shield. Again, Ahsoka said nothing. If I die, will you and all the others in the Republic forgive me? Naruto said again in an emotionless voice. Ahsoka was surprised at this and looked up to Naruto. What? Ahsoka started but stopped when Naruto walked out from the shield and into the coming fire. Get back behind the wall, guys. The fire is, Anakin said before he saw Naruto walking toward the fire. What the fuck? Get back here, Naruto. Anakin shouted, but he knew it was too late. Ahsoka started to run out after him but was held down by Anakin. The fire engulfed Naruto and hit the shield full force. He died so he would be forgiven. That's all, Ahsoka thought as the flame died down to reveal nothing but charred earth and ashes from the trees. The two started to tear but stopped when they heard a familiar emotionless voice from behind them. Do you really think I would go and get myself killed like that? Naruto said emotionlessly as he looked down to them from his spot on top of a large nut with his normal golden Sharingan on. The two actually cheered up when they saw that he was still alive, but how did he do it? They know that they saw him walk into the fire, but here he is, alive and well. How did you? Ahsoka started but was interrupted when Naruto pointed towards the incoming droids. Later, we have friends to play with as he jumped down from his spot on the nut, with the others jumping over the wall. They slowly walked out of the shield as the droids came closer. Anakin, Ahsoka, Sakura, and Naruto charged the droids as soon as they were close enough while Rex and Cody provided cover with their blasters. The first wave was quickly dispatched as they readied themselves for the next wave. Well, that wasn't so hard, Ahsoka said relieved. That was only the first wave, Anakin said, looking back to where the droids were coming from. As soon as Anakin turned, hordes of droids were on them. The four lightsaber-wielding warriors fought as hard as they could but still many got by. Sakura, Ahsoka, get back to the village and help defend the shields. Naruto, you stay here and kill as many as possible. I'll take out that weapon. Anakin shouted. After getting nods from everyone, Ahsoka and Sakura dashed back to the village to help Rex and Cody while Naruto continued to fight in the center of the battlefield. Anakin fought his way to the weapon. Most of the droids were centering their attention Naruto for some reason. XXXXX. Rex and Cody were desperately fighting off the droids that were entering the shield. The droids just blew up the wall, but since most of the droids were centering their attention on Naruto, it took less time for the Jedi and Padawan to get back to the village. Still though, there was still a lot of droids. As soon as Ahsoka and Sakura made it to the village, they were immediately thrown into the fray as more droids drizzled into the village. The Lurmans started to fight as more and more droids entered the village. In the background, they heard a large cannon fire. Ahsoka turned to where the sound came from. Why are they firing? The shields are still up. Why would they fire the cannon? Ahsoka thought until realization hit her. Naruto. XXXXX. Anakin was charging towards the super weapon, cutting anything that was in his way. As he started to close the gap between him and the super weapon, the weapon manages one last shot before the tanks opened fire. Anakin turned to see if the shields were down when the weapon was fired. The shields were still up, so why did they fire it? Why did they fire the weapon? Everyone is safe from the blast except, Anakin thought when it struck him. They are after Naruto. They must have gotten a mission to kill him after hearing he was helping me. Anakin thought as he sliced through the weapon and fought the droids defending it. XXXXX. Naruto ducked underneath a laser shot and dashed toward another group of droids. Naruto quickly cut through them like butter. Where are they all coming from? It seems that they are centering on me, Naruto thought as he cut through a super battle droid. The droids suddenly stopped firing as they encircled him. Naruto stood with his black lightsaber ready in his reverse grip. Naruto heard a large boom from the super weapon. First Naruto turned to the village to see if the shield was down but noticed that they were still up. When Naruto looked into the air at where the shell was heading, Naruto noticed it was coming down onto him. Well, this is going to hurt, Naruto thought as the shell smashed right on top of him, sending flames outward from him. XXXXX. The rest of the droids were easily taken care of as the droids that was fighting Naruto attacked the villager Anakin. All droids were destroyed quickly and aggressively as they made their way to Ground Zero. The shields were powered down know that the fight was over. As they closed in on Ground Zero, they noticed a man with a white cloaked man on his knees, shaking with his hands up to his eyes. They stopped sprinting once they got to Naruto's side. How did he live through that? Everyone thought his Wagtu was soon by his side. Naruto stopped screaming after a little while because he wouldn't move from the spot he was at. Once Naruto dropped his hands, they then knew what was wrong with Naruto. Blood was dripping from his closed eyes like they have been extremely stressed. Naruto opened his eyes slightly to reveal a five-sided wheel with 3 rings, all extending from his iris. Naruto's golden eyes quickly disappeared into an icy worn-out blue. I pushed my eyes too much back there. They still need rest. I don't think I did any permanent damage, but I should off on using anything above the normal Sharingan until I am sure that I am ready to use it, Naruto thought as he felt a hand touch his shoulder. Naruto didn't turn because he was temporarily blind, which should disappear soon. Are you okay? Ahsoka said out shakily. No, I can't see, Naruto said before shakily standing up before falling over. Sakura quickly caught him. Is the village safe? Naruto asked. The first thing he thinks about is the safety of others and for strangers. Maybe I was wrong about you, Naruto, Ahsoka thought as they began to make their way towards the village. 3 battleships entered the sky as they made their way to the village. Yes, the village is safe because you guys. Thank you, all of you, Wagtu said as they entered the village. Republic dropships were landing around Naruto, Ahsoka, Anakin, Rex, and Cody. Soldiers started to jump out of the dropships. Thank you guys for coming. I was worried you guys would never, Ahsoka said until she noticed that all the troopers were pointing their weapons at them. Kit Fisto walked out from the crowd of clone troopers. Kit, what is going on? Anakin demanded. We have exclusive orders from the Senate themselves and this decision is unanimous, Kit said. What is this decision? Sakura asked curiously. Naruto, you are hereby under arrest for war crimes and conspiracy of murder of a fellow Jedi, Kit said, shocking everyone in the group except Naruto. XXXXXAN. Sorry everyone for the late update and the small chapter but I have been very sick for the entire week and still am. Sorry everyone but I hope you all like this chapter. XXXXXX. The group of 5 stood in shock at what Kit said. Why was Naruto being arrested? What? That can't be right. He helped us fight off the droids. Ahsoka shouted. I'm sorry, but orders are orders, Kit said, taking a step forward. But he helped us. How can you arrest an ally? Anakin asked calmly. Making connections is forbidden to the Jedi, so to not show any emotions toward a stranger is crucial. We have word that Naruto got an order to assassinate you, Anakin. We were sent to stop that from happening, Kit said while taking another step forward. But he turned it down. I was there when he refused the offer, Anakin said in a somewhat urgent voice. It almost seemed like he was pleading. Again, I am sorry but we need to take him in, Kit said. The soldiers behind him began to load their guns, getting gasps from the native species. All the creatures in the village saw how hard the 3 Jedi and the mercenary fought for their freedom was beginning to question the Republic's loyalties. Naruto, who stayed quiet during the entire conversation, knew that the other Jedi lost the argument and began to try and figure a way out. Naruto's eyes darted around at a marvelous speed as he tried to come up with something. Naruto's eyes finally landed on the general of the droids that they defeated earlier. He was concealing an emergency beacon. So he is calling for reinforcements. It's going to take them a while to get here so I'm going to have to avoid capture, Naruto said as he stared back into Kit's eyes. Grief shot through Kit's eyes for a split second until they returned to their impassive state before. Let's add up the odds here. There are at least 20 clone troopers around me, ready to shot me if I disobey any of their requests and 3 Jedi and a Padawan. I won't be able to use my Sharingan for a bit but I do have enough chakra to last me a good long time. Good thing that little stunt I pulled didn't damage eyes permanently. My vision is healed completely which means I can at least my eyes to see, but not predict movements as well as I could with the Sharingan. Just another day being me, Naruto thought as he thought of a way to break out of the circle of troopers. Please, Naruto, come quietly and the Senate will show some leisure in your trials, Kit tried to offer without making himself sound concerned. Naruto grinned. What's so funny? Kit asked. Naruto returned to his emotionless state. Oh, it's just that the council on my planet also hated me so it's no surprise to me that they want me dead, Naruto said as he looked back into the eyes of Kit. Kit immediately knew what was going to happen. Naruto slipped his arms from Ahsoka's and Sakura's shoulders and pushed them away with a small blast of black chakra. The two stumbled back until they regained their footing about 3 feet away. Anakin turned to Naruto in time to see him charging a massive amount of chakra into his left hand. Naruto slammed his hand into the group, sending a shockwave which sent the 3 Jedi and Padawan into various clone troopers who too slammed into the ground as everyone was regained their sturdiness. Naruto took it upon himself to get the hell out of there. Some of the more veteran troopers pulled their pistols and fired at the retreating mercenary. Naruto quickly pulled his lightsaber and blocked the blasts, sending straight back at the soldiers. The 3 Jedi were soon on their feet, after a good 5 minutes, and following the white-cloaked man. Naruto turned to observe his work as he retracted his lightsaber and placed it back onto his belt. So the Jedi are the only ones that are following. As to be expected, they are inclined to uphold what their superiors order them to do, Naruto thought as he continued to run. XXXXX. He's stopping, Sakura shouted to the others as they ran to about 15 feet away from Naruto until stopping. Naruto faced them in the center of an enormous field with the grass that reached up to their ankles. The 3 Jedi stood in a line with Sakura on the right, Kit on the left, and Anakin in the center. I see that you are resisting arrest. Then we must take you by force, Kit said as all 3 Jedi pulled their lightsabers out at the same time. Naruto stared blankly back as he slipped his black lightsaber out while holding it in his traditional reverse grip. Naruto stood a style that they rarely ever seen anymore. Naruto had his left hand stretched out before him while his lightsaber seemed to be touching his back or arm because it seemed so close. Think of the stance of the apprentice in Soul Calibur 4 but with his back not so bent over and his legs in a more relaxed state. I don't that by the way. The two forces simply stared at each other with the sun burning brightly high in the center of the sky. Anakin, getting irritated that nothing was happening, charged Naruto on the attempt to capture. This was, of course, his bodyguard until a couple of minutes ago. At about 6 feet into the charge, Naruto held up a hand sign that made a large puff of smoke. Anakin was forced to block a counter-charging Naruto. As they continued the power struggle, another Naruto slid out of the smoke and went for the kill. Sakura quickly went to the aid of Anakin as she met the oncoming blade that was heading for Anakin's head. A third clone jumped over the head of the first one in order to kick Anakin but was pushed back from Kit who ran over to Anakin's aid. How the hell are there 2 of him? Kit asked as he slashed Naruto in the leg so that he couldn't move but was met by an unimaginable sight. Naruto simply puffed into smoke. What the fuck? Kid exclaimed as Anakin tripped up the clone that was attacking Sakura and stabbed it in the heart, effectively making the clone puff away. The three looked up at the real Naruto, who still had an emotionless mask on. How are you making solid copies of yourself? Anakin demanded. Naruto shook his head and started one-handed hand signs with his unoccupied hand. Fire shot no jutsu, Naruto said as a fireball shot out of his mouth and sped toward Sakura. Sakura froze in her place. How was he making fire from his mouth? Kid acted quickly and ran in front of Sakura. Kid lifted his hand up to the fireball and made a shield out of the force to block the incoming fireball. As soon as the fireball hit the shield, Anakin dashed forward to engage Naruto before he could use any more jutsu. Anakin brought his lightsaber down upon Naruto's head but was blocked. Anakin quickly slashed at Naruto's right side but was again blocked. Naruto countered by hitting Anakin in the chest with the hilt of his saber, then swung it around to stab Anakin before he could recover from the attack. The lightsaber was inches from his heart before another blue beam intercepted it and shrugged it off. Kit soon followed up the parry by kicking Naruto in the stomach, making said person hunch over. Anakin and Sakura had both of their lightsaber over the back of his neck, ready to kill if necessary. Give up. You are outnumbered and outclassed, Anakin said calmly as he walked up to said person. Naruto began to laugh a very empty laugh. Naruto lifted his head to reveal a pair of golden eyes with 3 tomos circling his pupils. Outnumbered yes, but outclassed. We'll just see about that, Naruto said with an evil grin before puffing into smoke. What the, when did he do that? Kit asked before Anakin was kicked in the back, sending Anakin stumbling forward. Damn, he's quick, Anakin thought as he brought up his hand and force pushed Naruto, making him skid across the ground. Sakura and Kit were soon on Naruto in the blink of the eye. Anakin soon joined the fray as he recovered from the blow to his back. When Anakin looked into Naruto's eyes, he saw that he was relatively calm, but that since Naruto always had that emotionless mask on anyways, it was hard to tell. Anakin went for a stab to the leg but was parried when Naruto blocked the attack and led the stab to the side, sending him stumbling past him. Kit slashed at Naruto but again was stopped when Naruto ducked under the horizontal swipe and kicked Kit in the chin, making him fly into the air. This is taking too long. I'm going to have to thin the numbers a little bit if I'm going to win this battle, Naruto thought as Sakura went for a stab to Naruto's heart. Naruto began to charge his hand with lightning as she jabbed at Naruto's heart. Naruto again parried her jab to her right, leaving her open for an attack. Chidori, Naruto shouted and rammed the blue lightning arm through Sakura's heart. Everyone stopped what they were thinking and simply stared at the two. Sakura's eyes were wide but quickly softened as she looked into Naruto's eyes. I should not have underestimated you, Sakura whispered into Naruto's ear before she coughed up some blood onto Naruto's shoulder. Naruto slipped his arm out of Sakura and turned to the others. When did Ahsoka get here? Naruto thought as they all continued to look between Naruto and Sakura. Ahsoka seemed to be crying from death of a comrade and shaking in hatred by who did it. You bastard, I just started to think of you as an ally, Ahsoka shouted as she pulled out her green lightsaber. Anakin answered Ahsoka before Naruto could speak. He is a mercenary, Ahsoka. They could change sides whenever they see fit. That is why they are never to be trusted, Anakin spat out. Naruto still had his emotionless mask on as he again got into ready position. Then why did you trust him? Ahsoka asked. Because I thought he was different from all the others, Anakin answered truthfully. Kit finally caught on to what was going on. So you hired him as a bodyguard so you can mend some relations with him. And we showed up, he saw us as a threat and decided to fight against us. Damn, sorry about that, Kit said shamefully. That's not the problem anymore. We need to finish this fight before he can get another one of us, Anakin said as the three bore holes into Naruto's as he picked up Sakura's lightsaber. Naruto grinned as he stashed away Sakura's lightsaber. What's so funny? Ahsoka shouted but her question was answered when 2 separatist battleships entered the atmosphere. Dropships started to land where the village was in the distance, along with Republic dropships as well. 2 Republic dropships landed behind the 2 Jedi and Padawan as clone troopers, along with Cody and Rex, filed out of the dropships. A separatist dropship landed behind Naruto as droids started to flood out of theirs. Rex and Cody both noticed that Sakura was dead next to Naruto with a hole that was big enough for an arm to go through it. Naruto killed her, didn't he? Rex asked. Ahsoka nodded slowly as she wiped away her tears. They all knew that Naruto was forced to fight them because the higher-ups told them to arrest him, but that didn't make dealing with the fact that another Jedi was killed by a lone mercenary. Especially when there were 3 Jedi there against 1 mercenary. We have an order to bring you to safety, sir, a droid with yellow painted on him said to Naruto. Naruto nodded as he turned back to the group in front of him. I hope to work with you again, Skywalker. It was fun, Naruto said as he turned to place his hat back upon his head. Naruto walked calmly past the droids to the dropship. Stop him, everyone fire, Anakin shouted as everyone began firing their weapons. The droids quickly responded by firing back at the clones. Anakin, Kit, and Ahsoka all started running forward as they blocked any blasts that were heading their way. Naruto and the commanding field droid slowly entered the ship and turned to see how the battle was going. The droids were outnumbered and there were 2 Jedi and a Padawan on the enemy side. Of course they were going to lose, but they were only there as a distraction so they could get out. The ship slowly started to rise as the 3 lightsaber-wielding group fought through the droids to their objective, Naruto. Anakin saw the ship start to rise and jumped onto the side of the ship, holding on only by his arms. He looked up to Naruto and the commanding droid both looking down at him. Naruto walked over to him and stood directly in front of him while looking down at him. Do not take this engagement personally. You and your men asked for this when they landed and tried to arrest me. This is not the way I wanted this mission to end but I had no choice. Hope to work with you again, Anakin, Naruto said before smashing his foot into Anakin's face, making him fly down to the ground. Since Anakin wasn't that high up, he landed on the ground with a good smack. Anakin slowly stood up and looked into the sky after the dropship as it slowly made its way back to the battleship, along with all the other dropships. All the droids have been eliminated, sir, Rex said behind Anakin. Good work. We couldn't get Naruto though, Anakin said with a smile. Such a tragedy, Kit said with a grin but frowned when he set his eyes on Sakura. How could a mercenary best 3 Jedi? Kit asked. He's a good warrior. We underestimated him and so we struck for our flaws, Anakin said as Ahsoka walked up, hearing the entire conversation. I thought he was on our side, Ahsoka said with a saddened look as she watched as 2 clones put Sakura's body onto a stretcher and bring it to one of the 2 dropships. He was until he was threatened. Once a mercenary is threatened, they tend to think that they are immediately betrayed. Naruto takes this rule onto a more extreme level than others, Anakin said as he finally looked into Ahsoka's eyes. They were fully of grief and happiness at her master's words. So he only retaliated? Ahsoka asked. Anakin nodded in return. Well, that's a relief. It is. I'm glad that he won't stop getting missions from us because of all that happened. Sure, the Senate won't like it, but that doesn't mean we won't stop hiring mercenaries, Kit said as he looked up into the air. The dropships seem to be on the battleships and we're retreating out of the area. Let's head back home, shall we? Anakin said as they piled onto the dropships and headed to their battleships so they could head home. XXXXX. So you managed to kill a Jedi? General Grievous asked as Naruto stood at the edge of a boarding craft with at least 20 other super droids inside. Consider it payment for this boarding craft and the 20 droids, Naruto said before closing the doors to the ship. Well, if we ever want a Jedi dead, then I will ask for his assistance, Grievous thought as he turned and started to walk back to the bridge. XXXXX. Are we ready for light speed? Anakin asked as the 2 separatist ships darted off into the distance. Sir, we have a problem, replied a clone that was operating one of the many control panels in the room. What's the problem? Anakin asked in a friendly voice. Since he knew the crew, he didn't have to be so harsh to get them to listen. It was his ship after all. There is a single boarding craft heading towards us. What are your orders? The clone asked. Try shooting it down with the smaller weapons and if it manages to connect with the ship. Order all units to merge on the zone of entry and destroy all clankers that come out, Anakin said as he turned to Ahsoka as the guns started firing up. Why do you think they are coming? Ahsoka asked. No idea, but we better be ready, Anakin said before they felt a hit on the side of the ship. Looks like they breached the hull, shouted the clone. Let's go, Anakin shouted as they dashed down the hall. They came upon the hull doors only to see that the clones were getting ready to enter the hull. Ready? Rex asked. Ready, Cody replied as they opened the door and were immediately under fire. All the clone troopers hid behind boxes and started to return fire at the 20 super droids. The droids were quickly dealt with before Anakin saw a white cloaked man with a straw hat jump into the cockpit of a fighter. Naruto's fighter to be exact. Anakin quickly stopped fighter after he cut down the last of the droids to tip his hat to him. Thanks for holding my fighter. Hope to see you again, Skywalker, Naruto said emotionlessly from underneath his hat as the glass covered the cockpit. Naruto's fighter quickly levitated in the air as it prepared to leave the battleship. Why aren't you attacking him? We could stop him here, Cody asked. Anakin simply shook his head and smiled. No, let him leave. I think everyone needs a rest after what just happened, Anakin said as he turned and left the hull, quickly followed by Ahsoka, who seemed to know what her master was talking about as they both made their way back to the bridge of the ship. XXXXX 1 week later. Rajan wants to do what? Naruto asked his master. They have been on board their ship for about a week now for rest and relaxation after their long and grueling missions. The 2 were currently walking down one of the many hallways the enormous ship had. He wants to make a base on the icy planet of Orto Plutonia, his master said calmly. Why would he want to do that? Naruto asked as he put a hand to his chin. He says that we need a place to settle down so we aren't always moving around, his master said. No, not that, but why Plutonia? Naruto asked. It is said that planet is uninhabited and would make a perfect place to hide from anyone, Naruto's master commented. But I thought that they were under the protection of the Pantoran. Naruto asked. And here lies the problem. He have decided to try and keep a base there a secret, but if we're ever found out by anyone, then we will conquer the planet and call it our own, the master said in an all-knowing voice. I see. Well, that isn't a bad idea, but what if there are creatures that live on that icy planet? Naruto asked. We have already thought about that and have a plan, his master said. Oh, and what's that? Naruto asked curiously. We will strive for peace and live peacefully with the native inhabitants, but if they refuse to allow us to live there in peace with them, then we will be forced to attack and wipe them off the face of the planet, Naruto's master said grudgingly. Naruto nodded high head in understanding. I am accustomed to the killing of an entire group of people, so I can take that well enough, but where are we going to get the men to fuel this possible war? We don't have a large enough army to support a possible global war, Naruto said. Do you remember that mission I was called off to when you left for yours? His master asked. Yeah, why? Naruto asked curiously as they approached a door that he has never been through. Well, let's just say we paid a visit to Kamino, his master said with a huge grin on his face as he opened the door to reveal 5 cloning machines. There were several scientists looking through the information on how to use these impressive units of technology. So we would only use it to secure our place on this planet and nothing else? Naruto asked. We won't even have to use it if we make peace with the inhabitants of the planet. If there is any, that is. But we will use it to secure our place there and watch over the area, and also look what else we nabbed, his master said as he pulled out a machine that was pocket size and what looked like a microphone. What is it? Naruto asked. It is a device that can translate your language or another language to your own, his master said with great pride. You mean a translator? Naruto asked. That's it. We thought it would be a good idea to have one of these in the near future, so we pocketed it for later use, the older man said as he placed it back onto the table. Probably one of the smarter ideas I've heard in a while, replied as they both turned and walked back down the hall. As they walked past one of the rooms on their way back to their rooms, they heard a reporter over the radio say something unexpected. It seems that the separatists are pushing the Republic back as General Grievous seemed to be fighting even harder than usual after the skirmish that was on one of the smaller outer rim planets. Naruto smiled to himself as he turned into his room for a good night's sleep. XXXXX. The icy wind blew over them as Naruto and his master walked across the icy bridge toward the village that was secure under the cliff made of ice. The inhabitant creatures all out of their huts to watch the two men wearing straw hats and white cloaks walk into their village. The creature that looked like the chieftain walked out of the larger hut at the back of the village and started towards the two. The two still had the words of their captain still ringing in their heads. Strive for peace. They might have killed 5 of our clones, but we can overlook that incident. If war is declared, then retreat from the village. They are expert hunters, so don't underestimate them, Rajan ordered to them. Peace, that is what we are looking for. Once the chieftain made it to them, it held the spear above its head as if it was about to stab them. Neither of them moved at the gesture. It could be an act of peace between them. The spear was stuck into the ground in front of them and the creature spoke in a weird grumble but was quickly translated by the machine in Naruto's sleeve. We are sorry for the attack on your men, but we must protect our hunting grounds. Please, let us be at peace. We are known as the Talls, the chieftain said as all the creatures readied themselves for what was about to happen. We accept your peace offering, but at a cost, Naruto's master said. The chieftain looked at the two suspiciously but urged for them to continue. Let us share this land. We wish to be a part of your culture, as we don't have a planet to call our own. We wish to share this planet so we can prosper together or fight and die together, Naruto as they both took off their hats and sealed them away in their sleeves. They were both wearing gas masks, but you couldn't see their eyes because of the heavy tint that was on them. They slowly pulled off their masks to show themselves. Naruto had his normal Sharingan on in case of any ambushes that could be set up upon their arrival, and his master had a white cloth covering the lower part of his head and ears, while Naruto had a pure white scarf that covered up everything to above his nose that he pulled up when he took off his mask. The chieftain seemed to be thinking of what to do and asked one of his supervisors of what to do. What do the others think? The chieftain asked to the crowd that has formed behind them. The only way they could have recognized what they said was by the translator Naruto was holding. The Talls shouted and screamed, but the two lightsaber-wielding men had no idea what they were saying. I wish we could put those gas masks back on. They were nice and toasty, his master said, but fell on deaf ears as the Talls finally stopped yelling. We have come to a decision. We will allow you to settle on our planet and we will live together in peace, but please stay away from our hunting grounds, the chieftain said. Would you please give us the area of where your hunting grounds are? Naruto's master asked. The chieftain handed them a map that was drawn onto a piece of cloth. This is the area that we hunt. Stay away from there and we will all be at peace, the chieftain said. Naruto nodded and held out his hand for the creature to shake, but instead got enveloped into a huge bear hug. Looks like someone likes you, his master said as Naruto turned off the translator. Just shut up, Naruto said. The chieftain let go of Naruto so they could report back to the ship. No, their speed bikes. XXXXX. Is construction of the base almost complete? Rajan asked one of the many droids working on the base. It should be complete in under 24 hours, the droids said before getting back to work on the base. The base was built into one of the sides of the ice cavern. Since no one could survive when they walk on the tops of the cliffs, it was impossible to land on the top of the base unless you were landing your aircraft into the hangar that opened up at the top. The only way to enter by foot was the doors at the front of the base. The door was located between two cliffs that stretched deep into the cliff, but it was no maze. There was one path that led you into it, but the entire path had strong points and guards all along it. The clone commander has made use of this and built a defense system into the side of the walls in and leading up to the entrance of the main gate. The cloning bats have made at least 700 clones, and the small armory that was on the ship have made blasters for all of the clones, and we have made uniforms for them so they couldn't be mixed up with other clones in the Republic clone army. The uniforms were made of a thick cloth, able to resist the harshest of the cold climate here on Plutonia. They had long sleeves and thick gloves, but not that thick so it would reduce their combat effectiveness. The neck of the uniform had a miniature version of Naruto's cloak as to not reveal their neck up to their chin, but it wasn't as long as Naruto's because Naruto's went up to his nose. They called this part of the uniform the Golden Shade, named after Naruto and his special eyes. The clones wore a helmet that covered their head and owned to their mid-necks. They all wore gas masks that were similar to Naruto's and his master's. These masks kept their faces warm and toasty out in the freezing snow. They wore thick combat boots that kept out both the snow and the cold. The color of their uniforms were white, including their helmets, gas masks, and rifles, but since they didn't wear armor, just a uniform, it was easy to tell the difference between them and the other clones that fought for the Republic. Their uniforms were made for the winter climate. It kept them warm, even in the coldest climates. Naruto changed what he wore as well. Naruto wore all the same attire that the clones had, minus the helmet, and he still wore his white cloak, but he took off the black clouds, but the inside was still black. Naruto doesn't carry around a blaster but is learning how to be a sniper by a woman that was their organization, but Naruto still had his straw hat from his Akatsuki days back on his planet, minus the bell. He only wears a white helmet when they are on secret missions, which there weren't that many, as well as a pure white scarf which he wore around his neck when he has on his gas mask but pulls up to his nose to conceal his face underneath his collar and to also keep it warm. Naruto also regained his power to use his Mangekyo Sharingan again after another week of rest. Their rifles wear almost exactly like the Republic's except they wear painted white, as to blend in easier, and the color of the blast was not the traditional blue or red, it was white. They choose to use white because once fired in this climate, it would be hard to see where the shot came from, and finding the crystal for the white laser was harder than it looked. Naruto and another mercenary had to go to the bottom of the deepest cavern on the planet in order to get a piece of the crystal. Thankfully, once you get a piece of it, you could replicate that color and put it into the magazine. You didn't have to put a crystal in every magazine so you could get that color. They asked to use Naruto's black crystal but were turned down for good reason. The crystal is very unstable, so using it on a large scale like that was a bad idea. The clones were split into platoons for each commander that Rajan saw fit, but was ultimately gave control of the clones under other clone commanders. One clone commander was in charge of the gate guarding its entrance leading up to the gate. Other clone commanders were in charge of commanding certain strategic areas around the area. Rajan saw that Naruto and his master were possibly the most level-headed men in the group, so he gave them both 50 men that were under their control. A group of 50 immediately started to get to know each other and talk about what they were to do. The clones use the same DNA as all the other clones in the Republic Army, but were told that they are under the rule of Rajan and the other higher-ups. The clones nodded their heads in respect and were convinced that they were under a different rule, other than the Republic. All clones were trained under strict order and were soon some of the most elite soldiers in the galaxy. Having been on missions with some of the mercenaries toughens them up so they are able to fight anyone and anything. And now, 3 weeks after construction, a cloaked man was seen shooting across an icy desert with 10 spec soldiers at his back as they drove their speeders across the Great Plains. Since their organization was known as the Black Knights, Rajan decided to change their name to the White Knights because of the climate of their planet. Now their name was renowned as one of the top deadliest and ruthless mercenary organizations in the galaxy. The Great Plains was known as just that. There was an enormous open field of snow where wind could kick up 200 miles per hour with a large crack going down the middle with several ice spikes jutting out of the earth. Walking across is suicide, but since their allies in the opposite canyon across the Great Plains are masters of this land, they know how to travel across this land. The clone soldiers got the name spec from their allies as well because you don't see them until after they shoot, and if you do it would only be for a second. Why are we out here, General? Is this another training mission? Asked one of the soldiers behind him. Our allies from across the Great Plains said that sent us a message saying that there were some bases full of some unknown force near their village. They want us to help investigate the base of what was left after the carnage. They killed all inside, Naruto said calmly as they crossed the icy bridge connecting their land to ours. There were to guard towers with several houses scattered around the towers for the soldiers to sleep. A clone and a tall talking to each other outside a spec house. This was a common sight because the talls had men set up on the other side of bridge and had huts along the bridge as well. All White Knight clones had a translator on the inside of their golden shade if they were going to be in close contact with a species that didn't speak basic. Once crossing the large bridge, Naruto saw a large circle with 2 combatants in the center. One tall and one spec soldier were walking around the edge of the circle, both looked to be having a good time. The two ran at each other and started to spar. These friendly competitions are also a regular sight as this allows us to learn their fighting style as well as they learn ours. These spars also build up relationships between the two forces and help us learn how to work together. Once the spar was done, they would sit down in a hut and tell each other about their weak points and their strong points. Truly our two cultures were mixing perfectly. An unknown force. Wonder who it could be. Do you think it was the Pantorans? Although they don't know about either of us living on this planet, do you think it was them? Asked the same soldier as before. We will see soon enough, Naruto replied back as the Tall's cliff came into view. 5 Talls riding Narglatches were waiting at the entrance of the cavern. The 10 specs and Naruto stopped in front of them. This way, we will guide you to the location, said one of the Talls. Naruto nodded to confirm what he said and followed the Talls as they made their way toward the location. True that the speed bikes may be faster than a Narglatch, but the snow creatures are not that far behind. Upon arriving at the location, about 8 miles at the southern end of Tal's controlled Great Plains sector, they saw a large ice building with several Talls standing outside. Once they made it to the entrance of the building, a commander of one of the Talls walked out of the building. Naruto extended his hand for the Tall to shake but again was enveloped in a vicious bear hug. Why do they only do that to me? Naruto thought as the Tall commander put Naruto down. This way please, the Tall commander motioned. Naruto was smart enough to put a translator into his collar before they left. The base was big enough for them to start manufacturing their own munitions, rifles, clothing, and translators. Well, enough for the men that they had. Once they reached the inside of the base they saw dead Republic troops everywhere. So this is who was here. Naruto thought as they continued up the tower the command room, leaving behind 5 spec soldiers to guard the entrance. Naruto looked around the room at all the high-tech equipment and wondered what the Talls were going to do with it. Sir, Naruto said getting the commander's attention, what are you going to do with all this equipment? Probably leave it here or destroy it. Whatever the chief wants to do with it, the Tall commander said before turning to the 7 other Talls in the room. Naruto shrugged at what the commander said and waited for what the commander was going to say. All right everyone, let's head out. There is said to another base over this hill and we must take it out because they are destroying our hunting grounds, the commander said as everyone in the room went to get all the Talls in the base and left to destroy the other base. The only people that they won't kill that are in their hunting grounds are the White Knights because they get along so well, but if the knight refuses to leave then they won't hesitate kill him. None of the White Knights, clone of mercenary, has dared to cross into the hunting grounds unless they are lost. Are we going to help them? Asked one of the soldiers that were walking behind him as they exited the building. No, they can handle it themselves, but what we can do is watch, Naruto said with a grin from underneath his gas mask. The others seemed to agree as they made their way to their speed bikes. XXXXX. Well, that was quick, Naruto said. He leaned against his bike in front of the droid base. The commander walked out of the base and noticed Naruto and walked up to him. Do you know who these people are and what these things are? The commander asked. They are the separatists, leader of the droid army, and the people at the other base the Republic, leader of the clone army, Naruto said emotionlessly. Isn't your army made of clones as well? The commander asked in curiosity. Yes, but these guys get more training than their men do, so they are a little bit tougher than those guys, Naruto said, getting proud auras from the 10 specs behind him. Don't get too cocky. That will only lead to your death, Naruto said. Everyone seemed to understand what Naruto was saying. Naruto turned back to the tall commander. Expect a visit from the two sides. They might want to speak to you, Naruto said as he turned and got onto his bike. Are the White Knights stand behind us if war comes upon us? The commander asked. Naruto turned his toward the tall with his hat still on after all this time. We will stand next to you but not behind you, my dear friends, Naruto said before the 11 White Knights sped off into the distance. The commander seemed beyond pleased with what Naruto. It showed that the White Knights see them as an equal partner, even though they haven't mastered space travel. Little things like this means a lot in the long run. XXXXX. What do you mean we aren't going back to base? Asked one of the specs that were with them. We are going to watch over the Republic base in case they come to investigate, Naruto replied. Why not the Separatist base? The same spec asked. Because they don't give a shit about dead droids. They will send an investigation team later than the Republic would, Naruto said as they parked their bikes under a sheet of ice that was connected to a large ice spike, about the size of the Republic base. Since the specs utilize in surprise attacks, they modified their bikes to be absolutely silent when they are driven, as to not unnecessary attention. True that they could be seen like all other speed bikes, but these are silent, letting them get a quick and silent getaway. XXXXX. Ah, Chairman Cho, Senator Chuchi. I suggest you wait here until we can secure the area, an older Jedi said as two Pantorans and two Jedi walked up to each other. I respect your judgment, General Kenobi, but I will go where I choose. This is Plantoran territory, Chairman Cho said as they stood across from each other. I thought this planet was uninhabited and therefore it's not aligned, Anakin said. Our world of Plantora is the only civilized planet in this system. I'm the one who asked the Senate to protect this planet. This wasteland belongs to us, Chairman Cho said demandingly. With all due respect, Chairman, this is for the Senate to decide, Noah's, Obi-Wan said. Ah, but the Jedi report to the Senate. Which is Senator Chuchi of Pantora, Chairman said as he let the Senator take the conversation over. Technically speaking, Master Jedi, the Chairman is correct. Since the planet is uninhabited, the moon of Pantora reserves the right to continue as its protectorate, Senator Chuchi said. Point taken, Senator. Anakin, you stay here with the Senator while we secure the base, Obi-Wan said as he walked inside. Anakin simply nodded, unknowing to them that they were being watched. I have a weird feeling we're being watched, Anakin thought as he ordered Rex to set the sensor beacons. XXXXX. The 11 men in all white watched as the clones started to set up sensor beacons. Good thing we have sensor jammers on or we would be fucked, Naruto thought as he praised his master for coming up with the idea for the sensor jammers. They are built into all of the knights' uniforms, making them virtually invisible, in their climate of course. Looks like they are heading to the Separatist base. Let's get back to the Tall's village and warn them of our visitors, Naruto whispered over their communicators inside their gas masks. Naruto and the spec troops made their way to their speeders and shot off into the distance to warn of the incoming visiting of the Republic Army. XXXXX. Two speeder bikes arrived at the Tall's village. Most of the Talls stayed where they were, and watched the two Jedi approach their chieftain. The Tall's chief raised his staff and smashed it into the ground in front of the two Jedi. Good approach, my friend. Ask for peace first, and if there were to be a war, then the cause of it would be placed onto them. Thus, gaining the Senate's praise, Naruto thought as he watched from his vantage point from behind an edge at the top of the cavern that the village was in. The Talls started building villages on their side of the giant crack once they showed up. Making more villages in similar areas was not a bad idea since they did need to expand. The two Jedi and the chieftain walked into his hut for further diplomatic talk, but Naruto was sure it would be tough since they didn't posse a translator that they normally wore in their suits. About 1 hour later, the two Jedi and the chieftain walked out of the hut. Naruto was hoping peace would be an opposition between the two of them because whatever war that the Talls got into, the White Knights would also have to support them as well. Obi-Wan stretched out his hand, but the Talls chieftain did a similar motion that Naruto knew all too well. The chieftain enveloped Obi-Wan in a massive bear hug. Naruto smiled at this action. I'm glad that peace is somewhat assured. Now we only have convinced that power-hungry chairman to see the light of peace, Naruto thought as the two Jedi boarded their speeders and raced back across the bridge. Once the two Jedi disappeared from view, Naruto jumped down from his position on the ledge higher in the cavern and landed next to the chieftain. The chieftain never flinched at this. I see that you are striving for peace. Good thinking, my friend, Naruto said as the two looked at where the Jedi left. I hope that we don't have to go to war. War for either of us would be devastating and weaken our already small numbers. We might have been expanding and reaching to new places, we still don't have enough men to fight against them, the Talls chieftain said gravely. Naruto put a hand on the Tall's back. You alone might not, but together, we may be able to hold them long enough to cause some trouble, Naruto said with a smile. Naruto took off his hat and gas mask once he entered the village so he could look friendly to the Talls in the village, but he still had an eye smile similar to Coxius, except Naruto's was with both of his eyes. The Talls chieftain enveloped Naruto in a huge bear hug that almost cracked his back. Thank you for what you are doing. How will we ever repay you? The chieftain asked. Most of the other Talls overheard the conversation and now liked the White Knights even more. Naruto in particular. We are allies. We need nothing in return, Naruto said as he walked behind one of the huts and jumped onto his speeder. Then the chieftain remembered something. Where are your men at? The chieftain asked as Naruto pulled down his scarf so he could replace the area where his scarf once was with his gas mask. They went back to the base to tell what's going on, Naruto said as put his hat back onto his head. Naruto was about to speed off until the chieftain stopped him. Wait, will you please be the diplomat for the White Knights? The tall chieftain asked. I don't know. I have a history with one of those Jedi, Naruto said, but he seemed to still be thinking. All right, but I will only show if it looks like the decision seems to be war, Naruto said. The chieftain nodded and went to get onto his ride. Let's go, the chieftain said as they headed out. My men will probably be on the bridge by now, so if I call them they probably won't be that far away, Naruto thought as he called for high men to head back. A voice crackled over his headset. Copy that, General. We'll meet you at the separatist ship, quietly, the spec trooper said before cutting out. XXXXX. Upon arrival, Naruto pulled behind the building that was meant for diplomatic talkings. His men were waiting for him behind the building. Glad to see that you all made it here safely, Naruto said as he parked his speeder. The loud sound of the Republic speeders howled in the background. Of course we made it. We are under your command, General, replied the lieutenant of the group. Touché. Okay, we are only here for diplomatic reasons. There will be no firing or killing here at least. If we do indeed go to war, then we will retreat to the Tall's main cavern where the two Jedi were before and set up a defensive position there. One of you are going to have to be the runner and rush to the bridge and tell them what is happening. Leave now while we take care of things here, Naruto said in a commanding voice. All the men nodded and got ready for the word. Naruto hopped up onto the building and peered over the opening at the top of the building just in time for Chairman Cho to signal what was about to be a bloody and cold war. Then war it is, Chairman Cho said grinningly. The droid translated it to the Tall's chieftain, but the Talls never moved. Instead they said something unexpected to the Pantorans and the Jedi. The droid translated. The chieftain says that now that you are at war with us, then you are now at war with our ally, the droid said. What? What ally could a bunch of scum like them have? They don't have the technology for space flight. Who are they? I demand it, Chairman Cho shouted. The Jedi were curious as to who allied them but hard-pressed not to kill Cho for what he is doing. The droid translated. Once the droid heard who was allied with them, C-3PO turned and told them what it has heard. They say that they are allied with the White Knights, the droid said. Chairman Cho burst into laughter while everyone else seemed frightened or hard-set on finding out if it was true. Do you really think I would believe that? They are one of the most deadliest mercenary groups in the galaxy and you expect me to believe that you are allied with them? Chairman Cho said between laughter. Suddenly a white-cloaked man jumped down from the hole in the roof and landing next to the Tall's chieftain. Everyone was silent for what seemed like ages. Are you? Anakin asked but was stopped when Naruto talked. I am the representative for the White Knights and since you are now at war with our ally the Talls, you are now at war with us, Naruto said as he took off his hat to reveal his gas mask. Everyone thought it looked scary because of the bug eyes and the fact that you couldn't see his eyes. Naruto quickly sealed his hat away and then took off his gas mask and sealed it away as well. Naruto quickly pulled his pure white scarf up so that no one was able to see the lower part of his face. Naruto had his normal Sharingan on and ready for any attack. Chairman Cho looked winded but still had blind confidence in his men. No matter. We will continue to be at war with the scum of the Earth Talls in a small organization like the White Knights, Cho said. Naruto and the Talls chieftain shook their heads and walked past the stupid Republic army. Once they left the building, Obi-Wan couldn't help but ask, was that Naruto? Anakin nodded his head as he watched where Naruto left with the Talls chieftain. Once the three made their way outside into the blistering cold, Obi-Wan ordered Rex and 25 men to guard Chairman Cho. This is just a setup for disaster. XXXXX. Is everyone ready? Naruto asked the runner that just arrived. The storm was beginning to make it almost impossible to fly, which was not uncommon here. These storms were almost always here 24/7. This was a weird case where the sky cleared for more than 2 days, so it was normal that it was beginning to pass over. Yes, they are building a defense on our side of the bridge and are currently making more clones and training the ones that are almost done with training so they can be deployed to the battlefield, the runner said as they say atop the cliffs along with hundreds of other Talls. 25 speeder bikes showed up into view as they rounded the corner toward the Talls' capital village. Now, the chieftain shouted as Talls began popping out of the ground. XXXXX. Ambush, Rex shouted as he and his men made a circle and hid behind the bikes for cover. Spears started to land all around them as they began firing back with their blue-colored blasts. Suddenly a white blast smacked into one of the clones next to him. A white blast, Rex thought as he looked where the blast came from, and there, in a crouched position, was a spec sniper. Everyone has heard of the spec because they go on missions with some of the mercenaries from the White Knights. They are deadly accurate and just a good all-around soldier. Rex sighed, and to think that just Naruto was going to be enough for one trooper. Another white blast hit another trooper on the other side of him. This time he found out it was Naruto who had sniped the poor clone. What can't this guy do? Rex thought as he gunned down another Talls. Suddenly a flurry of white blasts started to hit all around them, one struck down Chairman Cho. When he saw Naruto stand and draw his lightsaber, he knew that they needed to retreat. Everyone retreat. Load up and retreat, Rex said as Naruto began to walk down the side of the cliff. Rex picked up Cho and sped off with the remaining troopers and a wounded Cho. Naruto withdrew his lightsaber and jumped onto his speeder bike that they used for cover. Let's go guys before the Talls get to them, Naruto said as the spec troopers followed their general's lead and went after the remaining clones. XXXXX. Keep firing. Don't give them an inch, Rex shouted as the horde of Talls dashed at the staggering 8 clone troopers that were fighting for their dear life. On the huge ice bridge were at least 20 spec troops firing from their embedded defenses on the bridge. 5 clone ships landed where the now 7 clone troopers. Everyone stopped firing or charging once the ships landed. Senator Chuchi stepped out of the dropship along with Anakin and Obi-Wan. The senator seemed to grab the now dead chairman's helmet. What are they doing? The chieftain of the Talls asked Naruto, who was hovering beside him. Probably asking for peace because the only one who wanted this war was that crazy chairman, Naruto said as they moved to meet the senator in the center of the battlefield. Naruto was accompanied by 1 spec trooper while the chief was accompanied by 2 Talls warriors. The senator stabbed one of the Talls spears into the ground in front of them and placed Cho's helmet on top. To die for one's people is a great sacrifice. But, to live for one's people is an even greater sacrifice, the senator said while looking between the 2 forces. They both started blankly back with all of his headgear off except for his scarf. I choose to live. What will you choose? Chuchi asked. She stuck the head of her spear into the ground and placed a helmet of one of their leaders on top, signaling that they are asking for peace. We will gladly live by your side, Senator, the Talls chieftain said as he stuck his end of the spear into the ground next hers with the head facing up, signaling that they accept the treaty. They both turned to Naruto, who was looking emotionlessly back at the senator. Naruto shook his head in grief, shocking both the Talls and the senator. Why not? Aren't we all looking for peace? The Talls asked pleadingly. Naruto sighed. I wish we could accept your treaty, but there is a code that we must uphold when someone declares war on our organization, Naruto said while looking at the ground. The soldier next to him knew exactly what Naruto was talking about. By this time, Obi-Wan and Anakin walked up to see what all the commotion is about. What is this code? Obi-Wan asked. In order for this war to end, you must capture one strategically important area that is under our control so you can force us to surrender, Naruto said calmly as spec troopers began to set up defenses on their side of the bridge. So all we have to do is capture one strategically important area and this war is over. Anakin asked. Yep, though we do have plenty of strategic points, you guys might want to try and capture the bridge instead of the others. The others are almost near to impenetrable, Naruto said as he looked at his men making defenses and talking to the clone troopers as they did so. Some clones even helping them out some. What about us? Are we just going to watch as the bloodshed continues on? The Talls chieftain asked with worry for Naruto covering his grungy voice. Naruto smiled. That sounds about right. You are no longer in this war so you are free to be neutral, Naruto said as he walked back to his bike. See you guys when you attack the bridge and I hope that arrest warrant is off my head by now because I'm not being arrested very easily, Naruto said as he and the 10 men shot off towards the bridge to help with the defense system. He was right, the Talls chieftain said in his native tongue. Since Naruto or another spec soldier with their translator turned on wasn't around to translate his voice for him, nobody knew what he was saying. This is going to be a bloody war. XXXXX 2 days later. The spec troops were lined up behind walls of solid ice in front of and on top of the bridge looked at where the clone troops massed for the final assault to end this war. Naruto stood at the top of the bridge with his sniper rifle as the clone commander of the bridge collected his thoughts at what was about to happen. Naruto's master was standing next to him, as he was here to help hold the bridge. They were both wearing their helmets so you could see the gas mask they were wearing. The two groups agreed that if the Republic is able to capture the bridge then they would win the war, but if the White Knights were able to hold the line then they won the war. There were about 250 spec troops defending the bridge while the clone army had about 900 troops with more coming. Suddenly a whistle blew that sounded the assault. Naruto looked through the scope of his rifle and put it on a clone trooper's helmet and pulled the trigger. Thus making the first shot of the one most bloodiest battles in the galaxy. XXXXX. Obi-Wan, Anakin, Rex, and at least 900 clone troopers stood behind the dropship as cover, in case a sniper decided to take a pot shot. The assault was expected to be brutal and bloody since air support is out of the question and spec soldiers are known to be deadly and trained very well, but they lost one of their most valuable allies, their surprise. Spec soldiers are best when you don't see them first and are able to keep you questioning where they are, but now they are forced into a corner so they can't utilize in their specialty. Everyone ready? Obi-Wan asked. Yes sir, Rex replied. Obi-Wan nodded and pulled a whistle to his lips and blew as hard as he could. Everyone ran around the dropships and toward the bridge, firing their blasters, with Obi-Wan and Anakin front. A single white blast smacked into a clone soldier's head as they continued to run at the small wall of spec soldiers. Once they neared, a hail of white blasts started to hit all around them as Anakin and Obi-Wan blocked blasts with their lightsabers. They saw Naruto put his sniper rifle down on the ground and pull his lightsaber, along with a man next to him. The man next to him wore the same attire as Naruto and had a white-colored lightsaber, and he didn't hold his in the reverse fashion as Naruto did but in a normal stance as everyone in the Jedi Council did. The two White Knights ran past their men and toward the two Jedi with tremendous speed and smashed into the Jedi like bulls as the rest of the troopers ran past them and toward the spec troops on the bridge. Naruto facing Anakin while Naruto's master facing Obi-Wan. Nice to see you again Anakin, Naruto said from underneath his gas mask. Likewise, Anakin replied as he shoved Naruto off of him and force-pulled him closer. Naruto went through some one-handed hand seals to counter the offensive. Fire shot no jutsu, Naruto said as he shot a single fireball towards Anakin. Making him jump to the side to dodge the attack, Naruto dropped to his feet and swung his lightsaber down upon Anakin, but Anakin blocked the strike and rolled out of the way and finally stood up. Anakin dashed forward and sliced at Naruto, but Naruto jumped back at Anakin once he was done with the slice and smacked Anakin in the face with the hilt of his lightsaber, making Anakin stumble back. Naruto was about to attack until he heard a yell from the other battle. Naruto and Anakin turned to see Obi-Wan pull his lightsaber out of his master as he pushed him off of himself. Naruto dashed to his master's side. Naruto hit Obi-Wan in the stomach with the hilt of his sword and then followed it up with a punch to the chest and finished it with swift kick to the side of the head, making him slide across the ground next to the downed form of Anakin who was steadily getting up. Naruto bent over his master with tears in his eyes. His master started to cough up blood. What happened? Naruto asked as the one person he opened up to outside of his planet started to die. It wasn't his fault. It was an accident, his master said between coughs. Naruto still held on to some of his hatred for the Jedi Order but he let some dissipate from himself. I want you to take this. Learn the way of the forward stance. I have scrolls in my room of the base. I hope to see you on the other side. Then his master died because of pointless war. Firing could be heard in the background as spec troops continued to fight for the bridge as the two Jedi were now watching the marvel in front of them. Naruto turned to them with tears in his eyes. I didn't mean to, Obi-Wan started but was interrupted by Naruto. What's done is done. I know it wasn't your fault but that doesn't bring him back now does it? Naruto said as he picked up his master's lightsaber. Naruto knows a little of the way of the forward stance but has not mastered it. Naruto stood up quickly with his Mangekyo Sharingan on and pulled his lightsaber out along with his master's. Naruto held out his black lightsaber in the reverse style that he always did but now he held a white lightsaber that his master used in the other hand but now the point of the saber was pointing at them. An explosion went off, signaling the renewal of their battle. Anakin took the offensive and dashed at him. Naruto did the same trick Obi-Wan that Naruto did to Anakin a few moments earlier. Obi-Wan slashed at Naruto but before he could connect, Naruto backed up and let the slash pass him. Naruto leapt forward as to strike with his master's lightsaber, Obi-Wan down but Anakin, having seen this attack before, blocked the attack for him. This is going to be a little tougher than the three other Jedi. Those three not coordinated at all while these two seemed to know each other well. Naruto thought as he shot the hilt of his black lightsaber up towards Anakin's stomach, but was dodged when Anakin jumped out of the way as Obi-Wan grabbed the hilt from the side. Naruto kicked Obi-Wan so he would let go of the hilt of his lightsaber and countered with a downward slash onto Obi-Wan, who was still in front of him. Anakin decided he would flank and attacked from behind. Naruto pulled up his black lightsaber and blocked the attack from behind. Naruto had two power struggles on each side of him and was stuck from any movement at all. All Naruto could was overpower them of jump out of the way and send them crashing into each other. Naruto was a second away from doing just that but stopped when he saw at least 100 clone troopers walking over the bridge. Looks like we win, Naruto said in a calm voice as the two Jedi let up the pressure. Naruto retracted his sabers and pocketed them on his belt. Naruto then walked over to his dead master and picked him up. I'm sorry for what happened. I never meant to hurt him, Obi-Wan tried to explain. Naruto grinned and shook his head. I know, he told me what happened, Naruto said as he walked back towards the bridge where cheers from the spec troops flared up in their victory as wounded men or the uninjured carried the dead back across the bridge. The small group of specs has won the battle against a larger force. Once Naruto made it to the other side of the bridge, a soldier was tallying up the deaths on both sides of the small battle. It showed that the clones lost up to 800 men while the specs lost 113 men and 1 leader while the clones lost a staggering 783. True that the White Knights won the battle they lost a leader, and those are harder to replace than a normal soldier. XXXXX the next day. Naruto and Rajan stood next to each other with Obi-Wan, Anakin, Chuchi, and the tall chieftain standing across from them. Naruto was holding a tall spear and he wasn't wearing his headgear besides his scarf. Do you now accept the agreement and live for your people rather than die? Senator Chuchi asked. Rajan was also holding a spec helmet. Naruto lifted spear above his head to stick into the ground next to the two other spears. Naruto stabbed the head of the spear into the ground. Afterwards, Rajan placed the spec helmet on the top of the spear. We honor you agreement now that the code is fulfilled, Rajan said with a smile. Rajan was a human, about the size of Naruto except a little shorter, with red hair and brown eyes. He wore what all the spec troops wore. Cheers erupted from all around them as the Tals, Specs, Clones, and Pantorans all erupted in cheers. I'm glad that ended before this war lasted any longer, muttered Senator Chuchi. Agreed. We lost more men here than at least 2 conflicts with the separatists, Obi-Wan said as Naruto walked up to the 3 standing in a circle. Naruto lifted his arm out for Obi-Wan to shake. Why are letting me off the hook? I killed your master. Aren't you mad? Obi-Wan asked. It is true that I am a little irritated but my master taught me how to rid myself of such emotions and plus, I have lost close one before, Naruto said as Obi-Wan took his hand and shook it properly. But this doesn't change the fact that the separatists could still hire us, Naruto warned. Both Jedi nodded at this. They were a mercenary organization for a reason. Good. Then I will see you all on the battlefield with you against you, Naruto said with an evil grin as walked back to Rajan. Anakin turned to Obi-Wan. Are you thinking what I'm thinking? Anakin asked. That guy would make an excellent Jedi if he put his mind to it, Obi-Wan said before the 2 Jedi walked off into the crowd of clone troopers. XXXXX. Hope you all liked it. I had to let the Knights find a base and Plantora seemed like the perfect place to settle down at. This chapter was primarily for the settlement process and to show the galaxy that they aren't messing around. Surely a war with the White Knights would make headings everywhere. What will you have me do? Naruto asked as he gave the down payment for his mission to a spec trooper standing behind him. They were currently on a separatist cruiser near the planet of Naboo. Naruto had 20 spec troopers with him, with all but one without him on the bridge. They all still wore their white garment but Naruto was not wearing his cloak but he still had his scarf on covering the bottom of his face. My master wants your help in the assault of Naboo, Count Dooku said emotionlessly. Naruto never moved as he motioned for his man to bring the money back to their dropship. What else do you wish of me? That was a large sum of money that you gave me. What else do you wish of me? Naruto asked just as emotionless as Dooku. Dooku smiled. I want you to show a little hate to one of our friends, Dooku said with an evil grin plastered onto his face. XXXXX. Anakin was currently standing before the Jedi Council. He was about to receive a mission of great importance. We have positive ID that the Separatists are attacking the planet of Naboo, said Mace Windu. What? But, isn't Senator Amidala on the planet currently? Anakin asked, worry laced into his voice. The Senator is currently on the planet, yes. Your objective is to hurry your fleet over to Naboo and retake the planet, Mace Windu said calmly. Retake? What happened to the troopers that were garrisoned there? Anakin asked, a little angered by their easy defeat. It seems that they took the troops there by surprise and were unable to properly defend themselves. Now, go and stop the Separatists before they take what is left of the capital city, Mace Windu said. Anakin turned to leave but was stopped by Yoda. Stop, accompany him I will, Yoda said as he stood and walked up Anakin. Why are you coming? Anakin asked. I sense a greater evil, coming upon us. May we continue? Yoda said as they trudged along towards the ship. On board one of the dropships that was heading toward Anakin's fleet, Anakin was sitting quietly in one of the seats with worry stretched over his face. I know of your love for that planet, young one, but a Jedi must let go of all emotions if they are truly going to win against the dark side, Yoda said. Anakin only nodded before going back to staring at the floor. This flight was going to be a long one. XXXXX. Shish, there are a couple more around the corner, said one of the spec troopers. There was only one unit of spec troopers that consisted of 20 spec troopers. They wore their traditional white uniform with white rifles. Currently, all 20 spec troopers were leaning against the corner that led to the conference room where all the leaders on Naboo were meeting. The spec troopers and Naruto were ordered to move in first, quietly, and take the senator hostage while the main droid army attacked the outside. Naruto walked down the line of troops and plucked one of the grenades from one of the troopers' belts and threw it around the corner. The grenade hit the wall on the opposite side of the wall from Naruto and rolled between the two clone troopers' feet. Naruto continued to walk toward the door as the grenade blew up, killing the two clones and blowing the door down that led to the conference room. Inside the conference room were 3 senators and a general. The conference room was enormous to say the least. The higher-ups quickly turned to the source of the explosion. Who are you? The general shouted. It seems that the planet of Naboo and its 2 moons were having a scheduled meeting. All looked either shocked, angry, or in deep thought. I know who it is, the senator with the brown whispered. Naruto turned a questioning eye to Padme as well as the general. You do. Who is this vile piece of shit? The general shouted. His name is Naruto Uzumaki and he is one of the most powerful mercenaries in the galaxy, Padme said while looking into Naruto's eyes. She noticed that his eyes were golden with 3 tomos circling the pupil. Naruto was also not wearing his cloak or any headgear except for his scarf that was around his neck. How do you know this? Asked one of the senators. Ah, well, a Jedi Knight told me, Padme stuttered. Naruto smirked at this. It seems that Anakin has filled Padme's head with good things concerning me. Why would he do that? Naruto thought as 18 spec troops surrounded the 4 helpless higher-ups while 2 watched the door for any reinforcements. So, I take it you were hired to help take this planet? Padme asked. You got half of it, Naruto said as he pulled out his black lightsaber and walked up to Padme. Sounds of battle could be heard at the edge of the city. What are you doing? Padme asked. Fear could be heard clearly in her voice. My job, Naruto said as he swung his lightsaber. Blood splashed against the wall. XXXXX 2 hours after the invasion. We will be landing shortly, sir, said one of the pilots over the intercom. Anakin pressed the button to speak to the pilot again. Have they set up a defensive position? Anakin asked. Let's see here. Yes, they have a relatively strong position. Not invincible but relatively strengthened, the pilot replied. Anakin turned to Yoda who was quietly listening to the conversation. Are you ready, Master? Anakin asked. Yes, ready I am, Yoda replied as their ship entered the anti-aircraft range. Blaster fire erupted all around them as some of the dropships were hit and sent tumbling to the ground. The Council sent a large force of 5 battle cruisers that were jam-packed full of weaponry. The Separatists has 3 cruisers and were currently fighting each other over the airspace above Naboo. If the Separatists lost the battle then the droids in the city would be stranded. The Jedi's drop hit the ground and as soon as the doors opened, fire started to hit all around them. Anakin and Yoda were fast to pull out their weapons and deflect blasts but the troopers in the dropship were torn to pieces. I've never seen the droids so aggressive before. Anakin shouted as they both continued to move up, deflecting blasts along the way. Clones were hiding behind the derbies of destroyed dropships since there was no cover because around the city the area was simply grass with no trees at all. Under command of a smart general they are. Droids aren't as smart as to use cover unless they are directly told to, Yoda said as they moved slowly toward the gate of the city. Since they landed relatively close to the gate, the travel was short-lived as they pressed their backs to wall where droids couldn't hit them. Well, that was fun, Anakin shouted over the blasters that were whizzing overhead. More dropships continued to bring men down on all sides of the city in hopes to find a weak spot but to no avail. Droids were stationed everywhere, in the city, around the city, on the walls, everywhere. Sir, we got a problem, Rex said over his headset. Rex was currently in his dropship circling the city. What is it? Anakin replied. You know that weapon that was used on the Lumars? Rex asked. Yeah, what about it? Anakin urged on. They've got one near the center of the city and are loading it to fire on the western side of the city, Rex said gravely. Anakin went wide-eyed. I thought we destroyed the only one. Anakin said as Yoda and himself pushed against the gate with the force. Clone troopers began to show up near the wall but they were firing at the droids entrenched on the wall. Well, it seems that they built another, Rex said as a loud boom could be heard from the center of the city. A single shell could be seen heading for the western side of the city. Stop all dropships from landing until the fire passes. Pick up as many as you can before the shell lands. Anakin shouted as Yoda and Anakin finally managed to bust the door down, but as soon as the door was down, more fire was poured onto them. Yoda dashed forward and into the building that the droids positioned themselves in. Anakin could only watch as one by one the windows were cleared of all its droid occupants. Yoda walked out of the building's door, supported by his cane, with a calm exterior around him. Clone troops were swarming in through the door that was smashed down by the two Jedi. One of the clones that had a yellow design across his armor ran up to the two Jedi. General, we have confirmation that the north attack was successful, but there is heavy fighting in the area. The west is now attacking across the scorched earth and the east is currently held up in the field, the clone reported, but stopped when an ear-ringing blast shook the earth. Unlike when Anakin first saw this weapon, it was hovering on a tank and was much smaller than this one. This cannon was 3 times larger and was mounted to the ground. That cannon is aiming at the eastern flank, Anakin said as he watched as the shell soared towards the eastern flank. Evacuate the eastern flank until the fire is gone, Anakin said to the clone trooper. Yes sir, the trooper said, but stopped when a white blast whizzed past Anakin's head and smacked the clone trooper in the head. The clone trooper was dead before he hit the ground. The two Jedi jumped to behind cover as soon as the shot was fired. Did you see that? Anakin whispered as more clones rushed past. It seems that the sniper is aiming for leaders only. Yes, white was the blast. Spec troopers presumably, Yoda whispered back as he peered around the corner. Yoda jumped back as a white blast smashed against the corner that he peered around. Did you see where he was? Anakin asked as a clone trooper stopped in front of the ally that the two Jedi were in. Why are you? The clone asked, but stopped when a white blast hit the poor clone in the temple. This clone died before he hit the ground as well. Sniper, shouted one of the clones as he pointed to a 5-story building at the end of the wide street. Which window? Asked a clone with a bazooka. 5 up, 3rd from the left. The clone shouted but was hit the chest soon after saying it, but there was a difference, the blast was red instead of white. The bazooka clone aimed at the window and fired, hitting it directly. That wasn't the spec sniper that fired that last shot, was it? Anakin asked. Yoda simply nodded as they walked back out into the streets. As soon as they began to walk down the street towards the building that the sniper was in, a white-clothed figure with all spec armor jumped out the front door. The spec trooper had all the gear on and had a scope spec rifle with his helmet and gas mask on for safety. The street leading up to the gate was full of clone troopers. Oh shit, the spec trooper muttered as he ran into an alley so he could lose the horde of oncoming clone troopers. We can't let him get away, Anakin said as the two Jedi used the force to push them down the street at blinding speeds. They ran into the alley to see the spec trooper run down another alley to his right. Again, the two Jedi chased after the spec trooper, but as soon as they rounded the corner, they were met by intense fire. The spec trooper was being lifted up over a wall by another spec trooper while another one with a machine gun covered them. As soon as the spec trooper was over the wall, the 3 dashed away from the two Jedi. They work well with each other. They don't leave another ally behind if they are stuck. They put their safety before the mission, Yoda said as they walked back into the street where they first entered. True, the clones that are with us could learn a thing or two from them, Anakin said as he just remembered something. We need to get to the Senate building quick. We have to save the higher-ups before they kill them. Calm down, young one. We will get there in due time, Yoda said with a calm expression on his features. Yes, master. Whatever you say, Anakin said as he was in deep thinking about what could have happened to his secret wife. XXXXX. I see. This will not hinder our true mission, but that is unfortunate, Naruto said as he watched the clones push the droids back easily. If those were all our men, they wouldn't pass the gates, said one of the two spec troops that was reporting what was happening in the battlefield. Naruto stood on the patio in the conference room. The room was at the top of a large tower, which overlooked most of the city. A jerk at Naruto's heart made him begin to tear up. This is almost what happened when I was in the Sound Village, Naruto thought while looking out at the clones that were making great progress through the city. Naruto sighed. All's well that ends well, Naruto sighed as he turned back to his troops that had a look of worry on their faces. The spec troops normally wore their gas masks wherever they go, but they had them off since there was nobody around to see their faces. Is something wrong? Asked one of the spec troopers. No, nothing at all. Please, report to the others and tell them to hold up in this building. If my calculations are correct, then they should be here in matter of hours, Naruto said as he returned his sight to the city. The two spec troopers nodded and ran off to tell the others. XXXXX. All spec troopers, fall back to the HQ. I repeat, all spec troopers, fall back to the HQ, said the captain of the spec troopers over their portable communicators. Two spec troopers looked at each other and nodded, as if they knew what each other was thinking. Currently, the two spec troopers were in a 3-story building, on the roof, and supporting the droids that were fighting in streets below. One had a sniper rifle while the other had a bazooka and a standard-issue rifle. The droid tank was blown up by a Republic walker that was steadily moving down the street because of all the droids firing various weapons at it. One more shot from the bazooka and we're out, said the spec trooper with the bazooka. The sniper nodded and returned to hitting clones in the head with his sniper. The bazooka aimed his heavy anti-tank weapon and shot off a shot. XXXXX. Get that walker up. Use it to take out the smaller droids. Rex shouted as they continued to fire at the onslaught of droids in the street. Rex looked up at the building that had many super droids in the windows firing their arm rockets at them in blaster fire. Even though the arm rockets that the super droids fired had little effect on the walker, it still did damage that could build up into disaster for the crew inside. But what caught his eye were the two spec troopers on the roof of the building. One had a sniper while the other pulled up a heavy anti-tank weapon. Get out, Rex shouted to the crew inside, but it was too late. The spec anti-tank man fired his weapon and hit the walker before the crew could respond. The rocket hit its right leg and made the walker smash into a building to its left. Rex stood motionless for what seemed like hours, and when he turned he noticed the two spec men were nowhere in sight. Rex immediately snapped into action. "You men, come with me to the second story of that house," Rex said as he and two other men went into the house where the walker crashed into. One of the clones rammed the door in order to open it. They looked around and noticed it was just another house and was rather unscathed by the droid occupation. Rex moved up the stairs to the second story of the building but stopped when he got to the door to the room where the walker smashed into. Rex peered around the corner to see the hatch on top of the walker open and a spec trooper with his foot on the opening of the hatch of the walker with a rifle pointed into the hole. Another spec trooper was watching the spec trooper with his rifle in a ready position. The next thing horrified him to his guts. The spec trooper started to fire automatic fire into the hull of the walker where the wounded clones were. "No!" Rex yelled and dashed around the corner. Both the spec troopers turned to see a clone trooper charging them. The spec trooper that did not do the deed pulled his rifle up and fired a quick shot but missed. Rex quickly tackled the spec trooper that killed the helpless clones in the walker into the side of the damaged walker. Another clone ran into the room with his rifle ready but was immediately shot by the spec trooper with his rifle still in hand. Another clone ran into the room but he wasn't shot. The familiar click of an empty gun made itself known to the room as the spec trooper desperately went for another magazine but was shot by the clone trooper that entered the room. The spec trooper stumbled back into the corner of the room and slumped to the ground with his right hand over heart. Rex was currently punching the shit out of the spec trooper that fired his weapon into the walker, but the spec pushed Rex off of himself and punched Rex in the face. The spec trooper followed it up with a punch to the stomach and then a knee to his chin. The last trooper that was in the room with Rex moved around Rex and smacked the spec trooper in the face with his rifle. Rex pulled out his pistol and blasted the dazed spec trooper in the head. The spec trooper quickly dropped to the ground. Rex turned to the only remaining clone trooper. "Thank you for the assist," Rex said. "No problem, sir," the trooper replied but was cut short when a white blast smacked him in the back. There, in the corner of the room where the suspected dead spec trooper sat with a hand over his heart and a pistol in the other, sat a grinning spec trooper. Although you couldn't see the grin because of his gas mask, you could tell that he was grinning anyways. Rex quickly shot the spec trooper in the head, making him slump into death with his friend. Rex looked at the dead bodies in the room and in the walker. "Damn it," Rex shouted as he looked around the room. "I could have saved them. I could have saved them if I was faster," Rex whispered to himself. "If only I was stronger," Rex thought as the clones were just outside the Separatists' HQ. XXXXX. Anakin and Yoda were currently dashing through the halls of the Separatists' HQ in hopes of getting to the conference room at the top of the large building. The two saw plenty of droids as they snuck past and even a few spec troopers inside the building. The two Jedi rounded the corner to the conference room but was met by a sight that they did not want to see. Standing in front of the door was Naruto without his cloak or hat. Still had his scarf covering the bottom half of his face and had his Mangekyo Sharingan on and ready for anything. "So nice of you come, Jedi. Please follow me," Naruto said with an emotionless voice. Naruto quickly and quietly opened the door ever so slightly and closed it just as fast. The two Jedi looked at each other and wondered what Naruto was up to. "What is our plan of attack?" Anakin asked to the experienced Jedi. "I do not see Naruto using hostages, yes. A battle ensues and teamwork will lead to victory," Yoda said wisely as they walked towards the door. "Remember, young one, anger leads to defeat." Anakin nodded and swung the door open to reveal the room to them. Both were shocked at what they saw and one in particular was angered beyond belief. XXXXX. A.N. Woot. My first off-canon chapter. Hope you all like it because it is kind of short, but what can I say? Off-canon leads to shorter chappies, sometimes. I also bet you can't guess what's in the room as well. Carrot.